right, Bill, you're good. Okay, I will open this budget workshop at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, the 3rd of June. President are Commissioner Sedin, Commissioner Hadler, Commissioner McCurdy, Commissioner McGann, Commissioner Martinez, Commissioner McCandless, and myself, Commissioner Winfield. And we will start this off with some discussion and move into opening this maybe with some updates from Gabe regarding some of the numbers and where we're at. But I would like to just kind of come out here. I know that most of us as commissioners have seen Brian's email about moving on, and I want to state that after we had our meeting yesterday, I believe it was, that I also then went in and talked to Mark and Quinn about something very similar, that it would be nice to try and get the commission to the end of this, get to the bottom line of where we are financially, and attempt to move on to some other things that I think that this might be keeping us from being able to deal with. And so I would just like to see commissioners today try and get to the bottom line of these finances so we know where we're at with a very accurate number, and then we can make some decisions about what we need to do to come into compliance, to bring ourselves into a budget that isn't out of balance. And so that's just where I thought I would start out with this, and then I'll turn it over to Gabe.
Sure. So I'm going to just start by going over the document that had been presented at last budget workshop meeting on the 27th, and just go over some updates that have been made to that document. That's what I'm sharing right now up on the screen. It is titled 6/3/25 budget workshop. Just a little item, the Museum of Moab contribution, I had that quoted in this document as 144,525. That was just a simple typo. It's at what's entered in the budget is actually 114,525. Just wanted to make that very clear. And then the following update would be to the remaining budgeted expenses for the use of 2A that's TRT, establish, promote recreation, film production, and conventions. So that number has been updated to 328,974, and that is made up of from two sources or from two different departments, one of which is the Film Commission. That remains unchanged. That's the same as it was displayed previously. And then there's the budgeted contributions to the Grand County Active Trails and Transportation Program. And so within this this 328,974 is the summation of 106,632 and 222,342. And contained within this 106,632 is use of these funds to support the volunteer and business coordinator position in the amount of $31,091, and remaining programming already budgeted in this year to be used by the Active Trails and Transportation Department in the amount of $75,541. And this was programming that was deemed to be considered promotion in a meeting that was held yesterday amongst a few of the commissioners. And so that's the update on this first section here. There's another document in the packet. Let's see if I can. And that derives that $75,541, which it's close. There are a few still items that need more information to so it could there could still be a relatively small amount added to that number. But in another document that's in the packet, which is overview of budgeted TRT 2A uses by Grand County Active Trails and Transportation. Looks like that is called least right now as I have it, 2025 budget line items. I don't think it has that title in the packet. But this is a breakdown of those remaining budgeted 2A expenses allocated to the Active Trails and Transportation Program. And it's just the sum up of determinations that were made amongst those budgeted expenses. Those that were set in red, as you can see from the key here, were not considered promotion and therefore at this time are being held out from what will be the amended budget. There's a handful of items in purple that where more information will be needed before they would be included. And there's items in green that are considered promotion and deemed allowable to be to remain in the 2025 budget.
And that's under 6. Oh, I see.
Give me the attachment, Mary.
I got it.
It's 2025 TRT 2A budget GCAP programming is the name of the document in the packet. And so the summary of unplanned general fund expenses to date include trail ambassador compliance reimbursements and the amount for 2025 there's a to-date number that would comprise trail ambassador salaries. That's the running total at this point. That would be updated depending on whatever actions are proceed. And then in addition to trail ambassador salary and reimbursements from 2024 and 2023, that would be made from the general funds to Fund 23, where TRT funds are administered. Additionally, there's the originally budgeted amount of 2A expenses, TRT 2A expenses. Again, that's establishing and promoting recreation, film production, and conventions that has been historically allocated to the Recreation Special Service District. The entire amount of allocations from 2021 to 2024 amounts to $476,000. It's my understanding that that this amount that there's going to be an examination of these allocations to whatever agencies were ultimately recipients. And it'll be determined if any of that is qualifiable as promotion. Therefore, it's possible that this entire $476,000 would not have to be reimbursed based on that determination. And then the remainder of the figures here remain unchanged from the document that was presented last week, bringing us to a grand total of 2025 unplanned general fund expenses that will have to be worked into a budget amendment in the amount of $1,670,325.
Oh, what's that?
1.67.
Moving down the rest of the list, I made I corrected the amount for the Osta cattle panels. It was my understanding that $180,000 was the total cost of those panels. $85,000 was given in by the Recreation Special Service District, leaving $75,000 to Grand County, and there was a small cost overrun of approximately $1,500. I had quoted that, I believe, as $90,000 in the previous document, so that's been updated. Furthermore, there was a question regarding vehicle leases that were on this list. I was able to verify with the help of Budget Officer Stephen Bowles that with the exception of 2 sheriff vehicles, which were included and approved in the pre-authorized expenditure list, there were no unique new vehicle leases that were included in the 2025 budget. There were, however, some leases that had been previously approved. And so I didn't go back over the workshop meetings themselves and go back to the tape. But that leads me to believe at this time that the commission had decided that there would be no new leases introduced over what had already been approved. There might have been, there were some that were approved, but never, the leases never initiated. And though in those cases, they were included in the budget. There were two new leases. One was a search and rescue vehicle, and one was a vehicle for the new pretrial services deputy position. I believe I had those. Not sure if I had those in the separate list that I had, which was a pre-authorized expenditures over $5,000 that weren't capital projects. I decided to leave that off of this version of the document. I didn't, after presenting it in the last meeting, I didn't feel like it was helpful to the conversation. To pull in other, a handful of other expenses, though those definitely do still exist in the document that existed in the workshop for last week. And so they're still obviously there for reference as needed. But I wanted to just tighten this up to capital project general fund expenses that are planned for this year. Some of which, came up during the year, others that were already pre-authorized, namely the CJC facility purchase, and I believe the cattle panel order as well. But these roof and HVAC replacements, which are largely funded by insurance, and I think there might be some more follow-up needed with regards to insurance coverage on some of these, but it's the general scale of any corrections that would be included in that would be budgeted for certainly will be accurately accounted for. But sort of coming to a summary, if the pickleball court playground, the county's contribution, I believe it's a 50% match for that project of $600,000 on a $1.2 million project as it currently stands. If that were to be included in approved capital project general fund expenditures, it runs a total of $1,472,991. So with those general fund expenses and those capital project general fund expenses, I just wanted to provide an update here of where the general fund balance, the most updated general fund, or the general fund balance figure that we had in the budget at the close of 2024, as well as the capital project fund balance at the close of 2024, and the impact that would be associated, and the impact of those funds, what would be left in those funds, less total unplanned expenses, less total capital expenses, as displayed, with 8.9 million in the general fund reserve balance, 5.4 million in the capital expense reserve balance. And one last summary.
Can you just repeat those numbers real quick, Gabe?
They're right on there. It's right on there.
8.9 million,
Just missed it.
$8,949,123 would be the estimated remainder of the general fund balance, and $5,491,700 for the capital project balance.
And the screens will come back on. They sometimes go down.
Hey, could I ask you a question real quick? What statutorily, what is the most that we can carry as a general balance? You can find out later if it's severe time.
Oh, I don't want to quote something if I'm not.
That's fine. Yeah, we can
Probably.
Just for clarity, we generally do move stuff into the capital project balance from the general fund so that you remain in compliance with that, right?
Correct. Okay. That's the main, or I think that largely belies the reason why the capital project balance is as large as it is. And it's been a way to keep the general fund balance appropriately lean according to code. And then I provided a short summary here for the TRT 2A II. That's the Recreation Film and Conventions TRT. And so there's an amount of these funds that still have this tag on them. That we know, will be through this series of actions will be contained within the fund balance of Fund 23, where the TRT non-mitigation funds are administered. And so if you sum up the total trail ambassador reimbursements, so that's the three figures up here, plus the 182,000 that was already reimbursed as a result of the state auditor's findings, comes to 772. There is an amount that has been identified in Fund 47. That's the fund that operates the Grant County Active Trails and Transportation Program, as well as paved path maintenance and the Spanish Valley Drive Trail project. But there are TRT funds that are in that fund balance, and TRT funds that are unspent have to be kept in a restricted fund where those funds are administered. So those should be appropriately accounted for in Fund 23, as well as the estimated reimbursement of Recreation Special Service District fund allocations. And so I think it's important to highlight that there's an amount of $1,413,000. It's an estimated amount at this point, $1,413,596 that will be in the Fund 23 fund balance that have an allowable use associated with the code as it relates to TRT 2A II.
And quick question with that, along with that 1.413, going back into the account, does it also apply more to the mitigation side, seeing that that's a percentage of the total amount? So did some go to mitigate a small amount because it's a percentage of the total amount?
There's no mitigation in that.
That was money that was already split out for that 2A II use.
It'd all be on the promotion side.
Correct.
Okay.
It would be all the establish and promote sides, not just promotion.
Yeah.
And then Gabe, so the 2AI would be lumped in with the 2AI with just the establishment promotes, the two different things, they'd have two different tags on them, they basically be.
That's what I was asking at the meeting, is we need a breakdown of Fund 23 to make sure that we know it's 2AI and it's 2AII.
And as I read it, 2AI is tourism.
Yeah.
And II is rec, film production and conventions, correct?
Correct.
And just mostly for the public and others here. I know most of us are somewhat familiar with what those buckets are, but.
So I'll go ahead. I have the code open here, as we're saying. 2AI highlights requirements to establish and promote tourism. Tourism defined as an activity to develop, encourage, solicit, or market tourism that attracts transient guests to the county. 2A2 is establish and promote recreation, film production, and conventions. And the clause here, calls out 2AI. It definitely doesn't call out 2A II.
That's the rub.
So I've got a couple of questions back to your other document, Gabe, if we could. We're looking back at the Trail Ambassadors 23 forward. And the rec SSD, we're looking back 21 through 24. So my questions are kind of double-sided. Do we take the trail ambassadors back to 21? I know that that's probably in that 182 number.
Correct.
And the rec SSD, do we not need to move that forward to whatever our current date is? Not just 24, but through half of 25, or am I just?
That allocation or that transfer of those funds hasn't been made in 2025.
Okay.
So it would be assumed that that wouldn't be made, and these are just reimbursements of those transfers already made.
Okay, and the trail ambassadors portion of the 21 moving forward to the 23 is the 182K that's at the very bottom, fourth line from the bottom. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm going on that though, but there's two of them, right? There's the program, there's the programming, and then there's the salaries. So we've taken the we've only gone through the programming of 25, right? But we did not go through the programming then of 24, 23, 22, and 21.
The stay hours findings letter doesn't articulate that. It's very clear that it applies to trail ambassador salaries.
Yeah.
I guess there's a situation now where I guess because there's a new auditor, we're I guess I'll just speak to the misunderstanding that we had that I brought forward. I no longer feel like the misunderstanding has anything to do with Grant County's compliance. The misunderstanding has to do with the fact that we misunderstood that we would have to be applying a standard to these funds based on an interpretation of code that, in my estimation, doesn't follow the way the code is written. And so it basically, it seems like this whole situation has changed. And I definitely don't, I no longer feel that Grant County has been out of compliance. And with these budgeted expenses for 2025, I feel like our 2025 budget is fully compliant, and I don't think that's a creative or strained interpretation of the code. But I just need to say that.
Stephen, what is your opinion on that? Don't mind me asking.
So I think whenever we look at expenditures, go back to that same code, we have a twofold thing that we have to do when we spend rec film and convention funds. That's promote and establish. If you can meet those prongs, that's what we're looking at. If we are establishing, promoting rec film, production, and conventions, that's what we need to look at. Obviously, when we go through the expenditures, there are things that are going to be much more, and again, attorneys, we talk about defensible, much more defensible, and there are things that might be less defensible. That's where I go through. We had a meeting, and commissioners got a link to that, and we went through that. That's my stance on it, is that there are things that are defensible and there are things that are less defensible. Now, if commissioners want to ask me particular things, I can go through that. But realistically, where we are at now is we've gotten a follow-up from the state auditor. We reached out requesting additional assistance on these topics, and they have indicated that they would like the county to come into compliance. And the language that they utilized was that they'd like the county to be away from the line. Like if there is a question of applicability or not, or if one feels the need to kind of justify or argue it, they said the county shouldn't find themselves in that position. That's the conversation that they indicated to me on a phone call. I shared that with Commissioner Hadley, McCandless, and Winfield. Previously, they were upset. They indicated that they felt like the county was not staying away from the line, is how they put it. And so that's triggered the visiting or revisiting of this issue and this item. And so that's where the scrutiny is being applied. And that's why we met yesterday and talked about these different items. So ultimately, it's the commissioner's responsibility to go through and select the items that they want to say falls within that criteria. And I can tell you what's more defensible and less defensible. Any follow-ups on that?
Defensible based on establish and promote, or just promote is my question.
Establish and promote. From the position of the state auditor, she indicated that the funds from the TRT were to be utilized for promotion. That's the pushback that she gave to me. Was that the funds were designed for promotion, and that's what the underlying item of TRT is, for promotion. Those were her words when we reached out to her.
Even though it says establishment.
I'm repeating the language that was told to me that it's.
So she's not reading the code. She's not relaying the code. Correct, is that?
From their portion of it, they're saying establish and promoting as conjoined, as conjunctive, requiring both. You establish and promote recreation film production. So when we see an expenditure, there should be a promotion element to it. Now, one thing that we differentiate slightly is we look at the definition of tourism. And I think when we look at promotion under this current bill or this current form of it, not H 456, but there was previously a requirement when we talked about tourism, you had to bring people from the outside in. That's different than establishing, promoting. If you have a promotion element, I think it's going to be, again, more defensible if you have expenditure that is establishing and promoting. One of the caveats under A Roman numeral 2I, I think that's going to be easier to defend. But that's where they were pushing back and indicated that from the position of the state auditor's office, that it needed to be more promotion focused, and that's what their position was.
Mary, go ahead.
Couple of things. I would like to keep everything in that's defensible. If we're able to defend it, I think it's important to protect the taxpayers' money. It is property tax that it be taken away from. And so if it's defendable, I definitely think we should keep it. That we should keep it in the where it's at. The things that are not are on the in the gray area. I would be very interested to see other counties.
Yeah.
I would really be interested in seeing other counties to see if they're being as scrutinized as we are. If there are other counties that are using money similarly to this that aren't being questioned. I think that's something we need to find out. So those are the two things I would like to see. I would like to see other counties that have TRT and this are underneath this type of criteria to see where they are and how they're using it. And if they are using it in any ways that are similar to what we are, I think that's important for us to know. And I think if anything is defensible, then we should keep it in.
Okay, Mike.
Was it you or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mike, you can go first.
A lot of totals, but we obviously caught the eye again of the state auditor. What is the total? What is the total that aligns with getting that eye off of us? What number am I looking at? The 1.67 million unplanned general fund expenses today, or just the TRT 2A updates 1.413? To fall completely into compliance via the state auditor, where would we be looking?
These are the compliance reimbursements. They're labeled as compliance reimbursements.
Excuse me.
The ones that are labeled reimbursement.
They're labeled compliance reimbursements. So I believe that those are the funds that you're referring to.
Brian, go ahead and then I'll move around.
A million-ish.
Yeah, and some of this, is kind of from the email that I had here, so I just got that in front of me. But, after that meeting, I had some time to reflect on our path of compliance, and I just want to be absolutely clear. right? I have no appetite to be anywhere near the line. Right? I have no appetite to be anywhere near that line. You know, the state auditor impressed upon us the need for a change of the tone at the top. Right? My priority, right, is that we get compliant and that we stay compliant without any ambiguity. Right? And this, I think, is going to demand a strict approach to our TRT expenditures. You know, arguing over what amounts to what, it's like $75,000 in transfers pales into comparison the critical importance of securing these mitigation grants for our essential services, and more importantly, reestablishing confidence that the commission will do the right thing. You know, hold on, I'm not done. I got there's a couple of things that kind of came up, you know?
I apologize.
No, you're good, Bill. I just wanted to take a break real quick, you know? The time for arguing with the state is past, right? On December 11th, this county wrote to the state auditor's office and said, quote, "The Grand County Commission has formally agreed to comply with the state auditor's letter issued 12/24." Right? That's the letter. I mean, I still haven't gotten a copy of the letter. I had to find it in a TI post, which I'm upset about. You know, I'm fed up with dealing with this right now. You know, the reason that we find ourselves non-compliant again is the failure to take a responsible approach to TRT spending, even if some believe that certain expenditures are justifiable. It's these very games right here that lack adherence to the rules that put the Grand County taxpayers on the hook for the cleanup, like Mary was talking about. You know, this is not about meeting a mandate, right? We need to do the right thing by the people of Grand County, right? The path forward, I think, is clear. The commission needs to lead by example. Right? I won't accept an approach to compliance that circumvents the audit findings. When it comes to compliance, I think our guiding principles need to be beyond reproach.
John. Thanks, Bill. I mean, I don't think that we're the ones playing the games here. I think goalposts, if being honest, but.
So pull your mic down, please.
Oh, I said, I feel like the goalposts keep getting moved on us in the game, but that aside, so it seems like Gabe from what the dictates that we've been handed down that 2AI and 2AII basically, I don't know, that's, I mean, that's how it's coming across. And so I'm just wondering what you could come up, or maybe someone could come up, what would an example of 2AII expenditure be that would just qualify as that? I mean, I think all these things do in my mind, but I'd be curious as to what might be.
Well, what has been agreed to be kept in the budget are these items in green.
I think that's in Brian just questioned all that, right, Brian?
Yeah, that's what that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, then I have no idea.
Does anyone have an idea?
Again, I think the language, if we go back to the statute, the language carves out that tourism has to have an element of bringing people outside in.
I mean, a lot of these items in green that we discussed yesterday have that element.
I'm
not questioning you.
Not arguing with you.
So there's basically, we don't know.
Well, no, again, the word tourism, they defined the word tourism. It required an element that you promoted such in a way that brings people from the outside in. That's different than if they don't define the term, like establish and promote. Promote means what an ordinary Merriam-Webster dictionary of the word promote means. So you could promote that, for example, in the meeting yesterday. Right. That could be a local promotion that didn't necessarily bring them outside in.
Thank you, because tourism doesn't apply to 2AII.
So there were some different. So as I was answering that portion of the question, not the bigger policy part that you guys are discussing, but I think you can make some nuances between the two. And I know that's, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Thank you.
Okay, Trish, go ahead.
I'm gonna kind of reiterate what Jacques said, and Brian, when you were speaking, and I'm not in opposition to what you were saying. I'm just kind of pinging off a few of the comments, but like you said, the line is moving. It's like, so how do we stay away from a line that is constantly in flux? We have a new auditor and now the line has changed again and we're trying to, trying to be in step. It's just like, and then to not have ambiguity, to me, the ambiguity does not come from us, it's coming from the state auditor. And it's like, we're trying to be in compliance. Nobody was ever nefarious in their actions here, ever. I'm trying not to get really angry because I don't know how many times I heard that specifically in the campaign last year. And it's just a load of shit, to be honest. Nobody ever had nefarious actions. We have always tried to be in compliance with the state auditor. They are just, we're the whipping boy. And so I agree with you, Brian, we want to be in compliance. We are trying to do that, but it's a crapshoot. It's a total crapshoot. And Stephen, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to be very firm in this. We rely heavily on you. And I understand you ping it back to us and say, you're the commissioners, you make the decisions, but you're our legal counsel. And when we're interpreting code and we're doing our best to do that, I don't know why I'm just shaking. We need your help. And specifically back in the day when the auditor was like, what did your county attorney say? Our county attorney gave us counsel. We followed that counsel and they still hammered us, even though they said, listen to your counsel. So we need you. We need your help.
And we went through an hour and a half long meeting. I don't know if you had an opportunity to review that meeting that we recorded and sent it out to all the commissioners. Did you have an opportunity to see that?
No, I'm sorry.
Well,
No, I appreciate it.
We did go through that.
I appreciate it.
Spent the time, walked through it. And so I can only do as much as you guys.
I understand. I'm just making sure that you understand that we need your counsel. Maybe next year, now that the commission is predominantly conservative, they'll leave us alone. I hope so. But I doubt it. I think Grand County is a whipping boy and it will continue to be far into the future. That's just my opinion. I have we're doing our best to be in compliance, but they change the rules constantly. Our state legislature is just like the amount of bills that are being passed and we're supposed to, it's really difficult. I think anybody would agree with that. I sat there and listened to Representative Monson say that. He's like, it's really hard to follow what's going on and to be in, he said exactly that. So we are doing the best we can. And I think, we collectively, we don't disagree with you, Brian.
Mike, I'll get to you, but give me a moment here, and I would like to remind all commissioners to keep in mind your language that you're using up here in your professionalism.
That's probably the only time I've ever cut in
that is
5 years
forward, and also let's try and be better at interrupting others when they're speaking and they have the dais and the microphone, please. And so, Mike, I'll move on to you. Thank you.
Lot to break down here. In parts, I do agree. We are the whipping boy. We were out of compliance one time already. They literally wrote legislation at us. We're time number 2 now. It's really time we strive to become compliant, or else if the third time around perceptions, the demon's eye here, the third time around, it will be quotes nefarious. It comes out pure perception on that. And it's the perception that the state auditor that we are being nefarious if it gets through a third time of being out of compliance. Again, I reiterate, let's pay the bill and get under compliance as quickly as possible.
Gabe, can you make some recommendations to how we can do that, where you see that going forward here? Because clearly we've got to start making some decisions around this budget to get ourselves back in a position that we're not overspending as we are. And we have to make some hard decisions to do that, and it's still just a little murky where we want to start with that. And so I understand that your position and where you're at. I also understand Mike and Brian and their position. I even understand Trish and wanting to vent frustration. But what I think we need to do is get to a bottom line here. What do we have to do so that we can make some decisions rather than the back and forth? And I think that in my mind, there's no way to get there without you making some hard calls on numbers, that this is what it's gonna take if we take this route. The $75,000, I'm with Brian and Mike. That doesn't, we're talking several $1,000,000 here. I don't care which side of the line we fall on. I don't want to be in an argument with the state auditor. Whether the goalposts are moving or she's frustrated with what we're doing, doesn't matter. Let's just get to the end of this, and this is what it's gonna take to do it, is what I'm looking for. And I'm not trying to share my frustrations or project them onto you, but I do have some frustrations. I want to be done to where we can move on.
Right, so. There's some new information today and some, updated information with regard to the Recreation Special Service District. It appears now that the 75,541 that's displayed in this document, will no longer be, projected into this budget. Ultimately, I've made my position clear, but I'm not gonna, I don't stand in the way of the will of the commission to craft this budget in the way that they wish. So I think right now, I think what I envision the next steps being would be to hold the public hearing for the first meeting in July, and to tee up an official amendment for the second meeting in July. That would give enough time to be able to make adjustments to the budget. I mean, ultimately, what it's going to amount to is the budget amendment is going to reflect an increase contribution from the fund balance to be able to amend the budget in a balanced fashion. And I don't, at this point, if the commission wishes to open up the entire budget and introduce cost-cutting measures elsewhere across the budget, that is certainly your prerogative. I would ask you to lean on your office to identify those items and go about, forwarding me whatever requests you would like to see. But ultimately, that's what I can present at this moment. I have information regarding the will of the commission to make adjustments to the budget, and I will present an amended budget for a public hearing with those amendments. With, obviously with further discussion included. So that's a sum up of what I would say.
Sure, the county attorney wanted to say something.
Well, I'm just trying to make sure that whatever the commission's wanting to have happen, because this was set for a workshop. I don't know how much we, apart from the one item, we haven't discussed any of the other items. I don't know if any of those are contested or not, or if everybody's good with everything else, because without that was just one piece of the bigger puzzle. And so what staff's gonna have to do, and what the auditor's office and Clement, they're gonna have to come back and all of a sudden have all these items that we may or may not want to have adjustments to. And I don't know on that one issue, I think there's been some information, but on the remaining issues, I don't know if there's a clear picture there. And if not, it's really hard to jump from a workshop of this like size that I don't know, apart from that one item, to the substantial change that needs to happen.
I agree. Before I move on to you, Mary, I've got a couple items that Gabe I'd like to clarify. One of them is, let's see, where do I have it in my notes here? The cattle panels you show at 75 or 76.5K and the 80K from the rec district. My question is the 80K restricted funds or are we fine with that line item there? Is it something that we need to consider that we're using money from the rec fund there, but I haven't a clear understanding of if that money is appropriately being used. So that's just one question. I don't need an answer right now.
Can I just ask one clarifying question? So do you mean like the rec district's portion of the cattle panel purchase, if that is derived from our allocation of TRT that?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm
That we make sure that that use is an appropriate use there. And then I have one other one, and it isn't anywhere on your sheet, but I know that we have discussed the amount of money that's being spent on the library HVAC. And there was originally an 80K line item on there that I believe was coming out of the county budget. And I think at some point we discussed they had budget of their own that could cover that. I realize it's only 80K, but as we're going through here trying to balance what looks like several $1 million, I just want to get everything on your sheet that we don't come back and catch something in arrears later. And then I will go, Mary had her hand up.
I just want to reiterate that, and I don't know how the budget's gonna look or how it's gonna be presented, but I would like to see at least a budget where the things that are defensible are left in. I mean, if we present two, fine, but I do think if it's defensible, I believe, Stephen, that you have the respect of the auditor's office, and I think if you said it was defensible, that would go a long ways. Secondly, I know there's people in the audience here who are concerned about the pickleball court and playground. I think, I just want to say that I feel the pickleball courts have been part of the long-term plan for folks to put all out. These weren't something that all of a sudden brought in. It's been on the long-term plan. If Angie was here, I would find out how long, but I know it's been at least 7 years that they have been drawn on the future plan. And I know there is an incredible number of people in the community that really want to see this come to fruition. So I think it would be nice to let the public know if we are going to continue to support the establishment of pickleball.
I don't think we can make that decision
I know,
tonight.
but I just say that is an important thing for.
Talking millions, I agree, and we might have to consider downsizing that. We might have to consider looking for some other funds. Those are part of the hard discussions that we really aren't ready to make.
Paid for by grants.
Yeah,
Which is-
I'm aware that a portion of it, but the 600,000 is not a grant. That's coming out of this budget. So again, I think that I'm not ready to make those hard
Well, I
decisions
think
until we get to a hard number here. And Brian, did you?
I just wanted to, David asked if you had questions on any of these other expenses right here. And I was looking at that we went back on the rec SSD to 2021. But the TRT code that's inside here right now is from 7/1/2023. Were there any changes or updates prior to that? And the reason that we went back to 2021 rather than 2023 like we had done with the other accounts there?
So the rec film and convention that was introduced into the code in 2021. And that's when Grand County started making that allocation.
Got it.
With that line of code.
Melody.
So when I look at the green, purple and red in its trail ambassador budget, and then you had an amended amount, is that amended amount not including the purple or the red? It just is the green.
Only the green.
Okay.
Anybody else? Brian?
Just one more comment, at our budget workshop, we did kind of decide that we would go try to seek some clarification from the state auditor. And the state auditor came back, and I don't think that anybody likes what we were told, but I mean, she told us to stay away from the line. And I think that to me right there is enough. That's it right there. The fact that we were told to stay away from the line, we went and sought clarification, and then we don't like what the clarification was.
Did you feel, Brian, that you have clarity as to what the line is? Do we know what the line is?
I think I can tell what is, everything that we're talking about, is it defensible, is it not defensible, right? That's right there on the line. We are not 20,000 miles away from the line. We are right up next to the line. If we're asking, is this defensible or is it not defensible? Mary, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel if it's defensible, it's far away from the line. I think if our county attorney can say, we can defend this, then it's not next to the line.
So I think the green is defensible and acceptable in this budget. I mean, purple, I can see why you guys questioned it, and the red. So as far as that goes, and I don't know if that's the $70,000 that Brian's talking about, not because I didn't add them all up. But I do think, you know, for example, stickers, I do think they get people to come back. Like everything you buy these days has a sticker. You buy a Yeti and they send you a bunch of stickers because they want you to think about them. The next time you buy something, they want you to buy that. So same as with the water bottles and things that they're handing out, even though they're not mailing them away, they're reminding people to book their next trip in Moab. And so I don't necessarily think it's defensible at all, or like not defensible. But so as I look through these things, and I think you guys did a good job. And so you have the purple that's questionable. And so I'm happy with Gabe's assessment of these items, or you know, the amount that he's got here.
Sorry, I just need to clarify, and it's not for the point, it's not as a point of argument at all. I just want to make clear that that assessment of red, purple, and green was made by commissioners. And my assessment is that that the entire list is very clearly an allowable use as written in the code. Just want to make that clear. I'm not trying to argue.
Sure, and I think that it sounds like they all total up to about $75,000, so I think that we can still get to the bottom, the end result of what we need here. With a solid determination of where we've got to look at cuts or not cuts to make this adjustment. That's what we need at the end of the day. And if that requires another workshop, then I would propose put one together so that we can come there and then decide, what are we going to do with these questions, one around the pickleball, one around some of the other departments that need to be reimbursed here. What are we going to do? And I don't think we can yet make that determination. Mike, go ahead.
In all of this, state auditor's office kept in the loop on, we are working on this, just to get a random report on the fly that we're out of compliance and we'll hold taxes again.
I would rely on the county attorney and clerk auditor for that relationship.
Oh, be a stronger word. I've had one phone call with Tina. It wasn't a call expressing frustration on the county's circumstances, and the county was pushing the limits with it. That was the conversation. My understanding is that they would be watching and following up with the conversation. We reached out for a meeting that was declined. And so I don't know the level of relationship that we have. I think they've indicated to us that they don't want to babysit us on this issue, and that from their perspective, it was more apparent than we are making here, where it is more apparent than the commission is making it was the stance of the auditor's office. So I know Gabe has worked with Seth Overson quite a bit. This is not my realm, not my. I'm happy to facilitate the auditor in this circumstance, but the conversation and the communication is probably best served through likely the clerk auditor's office with assistance with Seth Overson, if you'll have that communication. But are they going to check in and review these? Again, the phone call did not reassure me that there would be a continuing working circumstances.
So not to fear taxation being withheld again, do we send a letter that says, hey, we're working on it?
I would assume they're probably watching meetings. I think that's where we're at.
Okay.
We don't currently have, we don't currently have a wonderful relationship because from their perspective, the county is not in compliance and from their perspective, is having a difficulty coming into compliance. That's two
Yeah.
different perspectives. So when the commission says reach out to them and have communication with them, I can try. But the last request for a meeting wasn't granted.
And was that you that made that request?
Yes.
Okay.
Via email, and I got a phone call in return.
A lot to say about that. David, you had any communication at all with Seth? What's your feelings as far as presenting him with a plan that we're moving forward with A, B, and C, and seeing if we get a response from him? Do we want to go that route? What are you recommending at this point?
My feeling is that, since the commission is at this point, wanting to follow what their current stance is. My position would be that we would, present a comprehensive, make comprehensive adjustments to this budget as applicable. And when that is already prepared, rather than relying on them or expecting them to give comments, during the process of making those, corrections and adjustments. It feels at this point, since there is a strong desire to follow what they're currently desiring from us, that we go ahead and follow that and present to them as such. I don't know if, I can certainly do my best to, leverage the positive working relationship I've had with Seth to garner as much, patience and understanding as I might be able to, for him to, give it some sort of blessing, but I can certainly try that.
Or do we just do as we're discussing here and then file the reports that I believe come due? And is it July 1st? Correct me if I'm wrong, or do those come due at the end of the year? Do we just make the adjustments? Do we have a responsibility to reach out to the state auditor at this point? If we make all of these corrections and clean all this up, is there a response necessary to them? I guess I'm asking. Or do we wait and do that with our filings at the end of the year, because there are new filings in place that are required moving forward? Are they not, due to HB 456?
Yeah, and there's going to be discussions. I don't know what the deadlines are on those, and we haven't seen what those reports look like. Certainly that could be one route. I mean, and if it seems like this is, all going to be opened up and very, carefully scrutinized in terms of what's budgeted and what's reported, the county could feel that is sufficient. Share that in advance with the SAR's office, and they could decide to respond or not, and we could continue to move forward with the approach that's being chosen. And it sounds like that approach would be confidently compliant.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Brian, and then Mike, I guess I'd really like to get wrapped up because we need to start our regular meeting.
Yeah, just real quick, it does say in the new HB 456 that part of that reporting will be a breakdown of promotion expenditures. So they will be reviewing that right now. That's part of the code sitting right there. And also just for everybody, what we have online is those mitigation grants. If we're found non-compliant right then, we will not be eligible for those mitigation grants for the emergency services, for search and rescue, or for road repairs.
Mike, go ahead.
I'd like to, I know this is a workshop discussion, but I would like to go forward in fixing this or following through with what we say in action, instead of telling the state auditor's office that we're trying or we're coming up with it. I'd like to start with the action first, sooner than later.
All right, I will go ahead, Melody.
Well, I also thought it was interesting. I don't know where this letter came from, but it was in the TI, and it said that the state auditor, Tina Cannon, said that the emphasis and intent of this portion of the code is to bring people from the outside the county into the county for tourism, recreation, film and conventions. And then expenditures for trail ambassador program should be funded from the mitigation funding, except for those activities that have supporting documentation that they are to solicit, advertise, or market or enhance transient guest spending in a county. So I think that is, I mean, if this is from her, then I think that she's pretty clear is as long as we have supporting documentation that the activities, whether it's the trail ambassador or the recreation special service district or wherever else we are gonna use money in the future, has supporting documentation. So that's, I think, what we need to request from our departments is to make, and that's going to be what we need for these for the grants, because the grants are gonna have those. I mean, we don't know what they look like yet, but I imagine something in there that we're going to want to have any supporting documentation that are to solicit, advertise, or market, enhance transient guest spending in a county. And I don't know where that letter came from. Maybe you can tell us, but I thought that was interesting when I was reading the paper. I was like, we haven't seen that letter.
All right, Jacques.
I'm sorry, this will be super fast, but I imagine the new HB 456 legislation is, it wouldn't be going back to the previous legislation to qualify grants that are under the current legislation, right, Stephen?
You're correct.
Okay, so you'd just be looking at from July 1st on.
Yeah, the strings are, the earmarks are up to after the time period that they.
Perfect, thank you.
And we talked with Gabe that there's going to be a portion of funds, because my understanding is we received the receipt of those funds 2 months later after they're collected. So we'll still have additional funds that'll be subject to the older.
Thank you, Bill, thanks for that.
Sure. Again, I will reiterate the importance of those grants and the millions of dollars that I think that we need to be making sure that we're definitely in line to receive, and pushing that line, I think, would bring that into question with the state auditor. But I will close this meeting, this workshop at 4:02, and I will say, let's take a 5-minute break before we resume. I know there's commissioners.
Thank you.
All right, I will call this regular commission meeting to order on Tuesday, June 3rd at 4:07 PM. All present, Commissioner Zadine, Commissioner Hadler, Commissioner McCurdy, Commissioner McGann, Commissioner Martinez, Commissioner McCandless, and myself, Commissioner Winfield, with our county attorney and clerk auditor soon to be with us. And so we'll all stand now for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I will start us off with citizens to be heard. I know we've got some folks here in the audience. Please come up, state your name. Normally we do 3 minutes. Just identify yourself for those people who watch in later on YouTube or whatever. And yes, you're welcome to start us off.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Melnikoff with the nonprofit Moab Solutions. I know most of you, but welcome to the ones I never met before. I developed a bit of turnout burnout, so I haven't been bugging you guys that much, but I wanted to not bug you, just share something with you. Since November 2003, I have spent a lot of my life in either Mill Creek at Powerhouse or Potato Salad Hill, doing a lot of hauling out thousands of pounds of trash and recycling, doing trail maintenance. It's been expanding, and now I'm a funded partner of the BLM, and I go in there every day. In that time, I've seen things you wouldn't believe. Like I pulled out a trampoline someone put at the left-hand waterfall at the bottom. I carried it out. 2 pieces, Bill will understand this, of OSB board that must have weighed 1,000 pounds. We had to go in with the rangers and cut it up with a reciprocating saw and carry it out. That and lots of dog poop and human poop and all kinds of interesting things. But that's one of the cleanest canyons. I walked today from the lot to the confluence, totally clean. One thing I've seen over the years, in the early days, what I would find when I got there in the morning was drunk people from the night before, or people that were tripping and they were staggering around still. I swear to God. One day I saw 3 beautiful women. They walked by me just totally naked. It's in the morning. It's pretty hot out. One was a blonde, one was a redhead, and one was a brunette. I'm like, am I the one tripping? No, they were real. This was like 20 years ago. Over time, I've noticed, because I used to be able to spend hours there without seeing anybody except the people from the morning. Over the years, with the internet and people learning about things and discovering our beautiful community of natural wonders, it's just overwhelmed with people. We worked with the sheriff to get the road, no parking either side, tow zone, because buses were coming up and dropping off 200 people in a fragile, delicate environmental area. The last couple of days, I've seen ducklings with their mom, dad. I saw blue heron 2 days in a row, so I must have a nest. And I saw ravens chasing, just at the beach, right down from the parking lot, 2 ravens chasing a coyote away. Like the coyote looked scared. These ravens were just bouncing on it. But what I did notice, the idea of the trail ambassadors, it took a while for me to understand it, because I've been in there working all the time and trying to make the parking lot to the waterfall clear as a bell so people don't go off trail and do damage. When they started, I did notice that because of their educational abilities, and because they could sit in one place and talk to everyone who comes in while having someone rove occasionally, it made a huge difference in the off-trail damage. And this is habitat for a lot of other creatures that we encroach on regularly. So while I think the program could be streamlined a little bit to be a little more feasible, I do think it's really important. And I only wish they were there in the summer too, because in the summer they go up into the mountains. And that's when I see the trail damage starting out. I just wanted to tell you, it's a beautiful place. I'm honored to be able to go in there every day and deal with it, except the OSB board and cash register I found once behind one of the pump houses that had been stolen from one of the businesses. A toaster oven dumped over. So those things aside, it's a beautiful place. And if we want people to enjoy it, we have to protect it. And then the experience is so much more valuable. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And should I bug you more often?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We appreciate your contribution to our community. I know maybe not everybody's aware of it, but Sarah's also a big part of the homelessness and stuff that goes on in our community. And we do appreciate what you do for this community.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sarah.
Do we have anybody else here in the chambers? Please come forward.
Dave Klosser. And say something about Cave Creek development. I'm aware that Cave Creek project received preliminary plat approval several months ago. And I'd like to speak to a matter that could well become a substantial safety issue as soon as the construction starts, if not addressed ahead of time. The proposed development will have roughly 3.7 miles of paved surface within the project boundaries. To support the traffic demand of the final population of 1,100, the developer has agreed to improve and widen the 1.4 miles of Cave Creek Boulevard, running through the development to a 50-foot wide minor collector. The remaining 2.3 miles of side road will also meet county requirements for lower traffic volumes with widths from 24 to 34 feet. But the only initial requirement the county appears to have placed on the developer for the 2.5 miles or so of Cave Creek Boulevard between 500 West and the development is that it be widened to 20 feet before construction begins. But something doesn't really make sense here to me because this road will provide the only access to the entire development in all areas beyond. And only needs to meet the county width requirement for an alley. 20 feet is what is required for an alley. It's well known that the growing traffic volume on this worn out 18-foot width of pavement is already bordering on unsteady. It makes sense to widen this section of the road to accommodate the dramatic increase in traffic we'll see when construction begins, doing it up front, especially given that much of it will be heavy truck traffic. The developer is unlikely to take the initiative to widen these 2.5 miles unless required to do so. Can you envision what it will look like with cement trucks, large lumber trucks, UTVs, camper vans, and cyclists trying to squeeze by each other on a corner with 18 feet of pavement, no shoulders, and a guardrail that is starting to fall into the Colorado River? I can, and it's not really a pretty sight. The development gets the green light. The 2.5 miles of Cave Creek Boulevard will have to be widened eventually. I hope there is some way the county can place this responsibility on the developer by imposing an exaction as a condition of final plat approval or some other means to have the road widened before construction begins. Not doing so will almost certainly put our citizens and visitors at great risk. It would also make sense to determine in advance if it's even technically feasible on that treacherous corner that we all know. And if the necessary approvals can be obtained from the Nature Conservancy and the BLM to dramatically widen Cave Creek Boulevard through their properties. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You do have one line, AJ, or if you've got.
Okay, do we have anybody else in the chambers and that will come up and speak? Heard? All right, we can go to online, AJ, please.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is AJ Throgmorton, Grand County constituent. I wanted to speak on a few things today, primarily agenda items 6 and 7. For agenda item 6, the airport grant letter. I applied for the airport board on the recent vacancy. I'm working on my private pilot's license. Personally, I spend a lot of time out there, and I definitely see the value in investment at the airport. It's a wonderful resource that I think we're extremely fortunate to have, and I'm thrilled to see investment in it. The bang for our buck on this grant match seems to be a no-brainer. 125K of our money versus almost 2.4 from the FAA. I think that's a pretty solid deal. As I believe it is, any additional taxiway costs for something like this, if you're going to build a new hangar, would be charged to the hangar owner or the builder, which just seems counterproductive. So this looks like a great avenue to increase access to storage for both local aviators and transients alike. While the additional taxi lanes are a huge improvement, when I'm out there, I walk through the walkways in between the hangars and I notice that there's usually a lot of trash in there, kind of some scattered stuff that I think we could do well to improve on, and just the walkways between the hangars too. So it's just kind of a quick plug on any improvements in that area as well. Lastly, with the departure of our previous airport director, I am definitely optimistic about the replacement and looking forward to that. Next thing I wanted to hit on was agenda item 7 and the Economic Advisory Board grant application. 2 of them kind of stuck out to me. I'm a big fan of the golf course line item. I think that's just a big sensible yes. The golf course is a wonderful asset, but it definitely needs help. Rob does what he can out there to keep things up. He kind of had a run-in last year with some leaky water systems, and it kind of got beat up. So anything we could do to help out on that is definitely a worthwhile endeavor. I'll say I am opposed to the 25K of the Chamber of Commerce. I think a large chunk of that goes to the Grand Summit last year. And if I'm not mistaken, there's about 5K of that used to throw a private booze party that a select few got to partake in. The Grand Summit was also pretty conveniently timed, seemingly to boost Chamber President Kornblatt's commission campaign, which doesn't appear to have worked. Lastly, I'm thinking the current chamber might be a bit captured by nonprofits versus locally owned tax-paying revenue-generating businesses. So again, I'm for the grant for the golf course specifically and opposed to the Chamber of Commerce. That's all I got.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online, Quinn? Anyone else? One last time for the chamber. All right, we will move forward. I believe at this point, our commission member disclosures. That's time of that. Thank you. So Mike,
I work for the sheriff's department.
thank you. Yep. All right, so thank you both, and we can start with our general commission reports. Trish, you want to start us off?
Yeah, on the 21st, I met with Ryan Jones from UDAF, just talking more about conservation easements. As you may know, we gather a rollback tax from Greenbelt and Ag delineations, and I think there's about $60,000 in that, and that money is supposed to be used specifically for conservation easements. So one of the things we did is had our GIS expert take those parcels and just delineate them, and then Ryan and I are going to kind of go back through those, and eventually UDAF, the goal is to invite larger landowners that may fall into this concept of putting their land into conservation easement, invite them to a UDAF meeting just to see what their interests are. So something that has been inspired by UDAF, they reached out to me to do that. Had another fair board meeting on the 22nd. They're just rolling along. On the 23rd, which more of you will speak to, we had the ribbon cutting at the Utah Raptor State Park, which was wonderful. And Mary, we cannot thank you enough for working on that back in the day. What a cool addition to our community. So, and that was a wonderful event. Everybody was there and very wonderful event. On the 27th, we had a planning committee meeting. We were looking at the HDHO revisions. Hopefully, I mean, and I can always send that meeting out to you guys, but they ended up, I thought it was really vibrant conversation. I want to thank Ben Riley and Caitlin Myers and Ronnie Schwartz for speaking extensively and willing their willingness to work with the Planning Commission. They did table it. Tony was gone and Megan was online, and they really wanted those two face-to-face to kind of complete their banter and then make a recommendation to the commission. So I thought it was, you guys are welcome to again watch it. I thought it was a really great conversation. I think we have a really diverse planning commission, and I really always appreciate their banter. On the 28th, I went with Brian for site visits out to the Dolores area, the hideout area. That was cool. I think it was really good to spend time with you and Kendall and just kind of go through that inventorying process. Yeah, that was cool. I'd like to do more of that. I met with Ian Michard, which is in the paramotor community. We've kind of had these discussions in the past, like how do we deal with those aerial conflicts? And he's kind of taking the lead, and I said the county's here as support to develop a website, to develop a Facebook page, and really kind of reaching out to that community and like, what are the areas kind of not off limits, but areas they should avoid to avoid conflict, and then just kind of appropriate, procedures when using paramotor. So it was awesome to meet with him and really have him take the reins on that. And I think that's a great first step. And if we continue to have conflict, maybe we can look at something else, but he's taken the reins on that, which is awesome. For 3 days this last weekend, I volunteered at the rodeo, the PRCA Canyonlands Rodeo. I cannot speak highly enough of our OSTA staff. I mean, it really kind of hits home when you're there and how long and hot those days are and how hard they work. And I get to leave right at a certain point, and they stay through the concert and all that. And they're just, it's amazing what she does out there and how dedicated that entire staff is to what they're doing. And I got to see Statler Wright, which is my saddle bronc guy from Milford. So that was a really big deal for me. But anyways, it's a great event. Great, just brings oodles of people to our community, and we're really lucky. Mosquito abatement last night, they just kind of the thing that stood up said they're wrapping up their audit procedures. So that was great. And then this morning I actually met with Carrie from the BLM. And sorry, Brian, it was just kind of a last minute. It was more, she reached out to me to talk about a shooting range. So I told her if we'd move forward, I'll get a hold of you. But I've mentioned repeatedly with Maddie, like that's where people shoot their guns, where we're going to put them, right? And so just talking about the signage that they'll initially do. But I said, really, Carrie, what we really need, which I've actually tried to get for about 10 years, is a shooting range. So we kind of looked at an area that had been kind of set aside a long time ago. And she said she'll kind of keep moving in that direction. Because to me, that would really kind of hopefully clean up all the shooting ranges in the south end of the valley, which they're all over, and hopefully mitigate any conflict you would have with guns and mountain bikers, which don't really blend.
No.
I think I've mentioned I have been shot at on pipe dream. And so back in the day when it was new, right? And somebody was just like, this is where I used to shoot. And I literally had bullets winging past my head. So it was a great meeting. And like I said, Brian, when she said if we'll start following up, we'll engage everybody. So
Carrie got married last weekend.
what? She didn't tell me that.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Am I next, Bill? Sorry, I just played you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Most of what I attended, other folks have also. The ribbon cutting at the Utah Raptor State Park was amazing. It was so cool to have so many dignitaries from upstate there, including the governor is always impressive. You feel like he's just winging his speeches, and they're so good. So that's always nice to hear from Governor Cox. I was on a couple interview committees, and I don't think anything's come out of that, so I won't speak to that. The Representative Kennedy meeting, I was only able to attend about 5 to 10 minutes of that, but I was really impressed at the end of it. He made a point of coming up, and he seemed very interested in my opinion on some of the things that the issues that he could potentially help out with. So it was nice to get his ear in that sense, and it was really nice to meet him. It's the first time I'd met our representative. And then, yesterday I attended the Tier 2 discussion along with Brian and Bill and Stephen and Gabe that helped to inform our discussion here. And yesterday afternoon, we had a very preliminary discussion between Bill and Stephen and I about making some changes or just clarifying positions on our governing policy and procedures. I thought that was a great start, and I look forward to continuing to work on that. Some of that's just housekeeping. Others are things that we've kind of had on the burner for a while. So thank you for getting that ball rolling, Stephen. And future considerations, I would very respectfully ask our chair to please put the GCAT presentation on our next commission meeting. I would have loved to have heard that last meeting. We had the presentation present in the packet. And I think it would be great to see that at the next meeting. So thank you.
Michael.
I attended Representative Kennedy's meeting also, had a chance after to direct the entire team up Dead Horse Point and tour the area. Most of my special service district meetings are directly hand in hand following the budgeting meetings we have been having, and see how this pans out a little farther on that. I want to reiterate part of what Trish presented or brought to us. Everyone, I don't know if you saw the email. It actually asked for a little volunteer time going into Grand County Fair over July 4th. It asked all county employees and elected officials. Everyone got to see it. We would like to see a little more. If you have an hour to spare, we really could use it out there. Trish is on the fair board and she knows. We've only been having the fair for a short time, but it has grown and grown and grown in a good way. There is so much local buy-in to the fair, and even to the point of we're starting to attract, and I can speak just to the volleyball part of it, but we're starting to attract players from Colorado and teams from Colorado. We even picked up a team last year from California that came through. So, and that's just one small part of the totality of the fair. So, please, if you have an hour to spare or more time, reply to that email, but that's all I have.
Mary, please.
Yes, on the third, I had this was the third, on that Wednesday after our last meeting, I had a solid waste special service district board meeting. I mentioned a couple meetings ago that we lease the land next to us, and it's all, you know, if you've been over to the transfer station, you've probably seen the huge improvement, how much safer it is, how much nicer. Another thing part of that leasing was we got to lease the building, which has made it possible for us to do we've created, they've created a welding shop in there and hired a welder so that we're going to be able to do our in-house welding, which is a huge, very, very good thing, because all of the different roll-offs and the different containers, so many of them are metal and they rust. And then it's a process to get it fixed, and it costs money, and then it's we're always trying to catch up with having this in-house and a place to work. We should be able to really enhance the ability to get roll-offs and such to people in a more timely fashion, and to save some money. So that's really exciting that happened. I mentioned before that we had that an interlocal grant that we got with the city, USU, and the Solid Waste Special Service District for in-vessel composting, mostly for food. And because of the situation with our federal government now, it's like we were given the grant, then the grant was taken away. Then now we have it back. So that's really good news, and we hope that that we don't go through another cycle of up and down with it. It is going to put a little more crunch on doing the time element that was that was mentioned in the grant, but we're very excited and very happy that looks now like it's going to come to fruition. We hosted the Recycling Coalition of Utah Spring Conference, and the attendees toured the Recycle Center, Community Recycle Center, and were very, it's very well attended and very well received. We completed the Green Waste Reclamation Program grind with unscreened mulch, which is now available for sale for people who want it, with a portion of the material now being allocated to help to put into the compost system that's coming up. The Moab landfill permit renewal nearly ready to submit, and the Klondike new cell data and design early ready for application, which is exciting and good news, because we're coming to a close of the sale, one of the sales. So we're ahead of schedule. We're not in that crunch period. That's nice. We reclaimed 691 tons of metal and generated $74,000 in revenue. Our software is up. The latest version is up and running and working very well, which is our software program has been a real challenge up to recently. And we've approved a contract to lease a 20-yard rear loader. And we discussed the potential of alternative daily covering products that they're using in Monticello, at the Monticello. And you think we're all around this dirt. Everywhere we look, there's dirt. But yet getting dirt is a real big deal to cover the landfill. And so if we can have this alternative cover, it will end up saving money and will be, it would be a good thing. So we're looking into doing that. And then again, I attended the ribbon cutting at the Utah Raptor State Park. And the thing that I was the most excited about was I was able to meet a gentleman that was an ancestor of the people, one of the people who were in the internment camp. He came from Hawaii, and I won't even try to pronounce the gentleman's name because I will just, or I will mess it up. But it was a really moving and sad story. And this gentleman that was in that isolation camp was a decorated hero in World War I, had worked as a medic. And then when World War II broke out, he hurried to sign up again because he had all these skills. And instead of getting to serve in the forces, he was put into this internment camp in California. There was a riot there. Well, it was a demonstration that some people, and he was thought to be one of the instigators, which he, in his diaries, it seemed like he was more of a man who just wanted their civil rights respected. And then, so then he was sent to this was considered an isolation camp, which was more intense than internment camps themselves. Gave up his citizenship and moved to Japan, where he wasn't accepted. People that chose, because when the internment camps were just, it was 6 months after the end of the war that they were dissolved. And everybody that was in there had the right to choose to remain in the United States and go back to their home, or go back to Japan. He spent his time in the internment camp learning to write and read. He had a 3 degrees, very intelligent man. Decided to go back to Japan and found it that he wasn't accepted there. So it was a fairly sad story, and the gentleman that came there brought us the things that person that was in the camp owned from when he was in the World War I, that he has donated to the Utah Raptor State Park, so it will be on sale there. And then the tour around where the internment camp was fascinating, because we had a guide that had done tremendous amount of research. So to me, that was so exciting to meet somebody and to hear the story firsthand and have him read from his diaries, and it made that whole place seem pretty present. So that was exciting. That's my report.
Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah, thanks. No, I'll just keep it quick. On the 22nd, I met with Madden, that's our new advertising agency. And spent the day with them here and kind of just introduced them to the area. We went out and had lunch with them. We had a real nice session where we kind of focused on what the goals were, what they're going to be using for their KPIs, and some of the history of Moab, and then what kind of our competition looks like in other places. We spent a couple of hours doing a creative exercise, kind of going through, how to play the game and kind of what we want. And then we spent the afternoon out in Arches. We took them out to Arches National Park so they could see Arches and kind of see what this whole place is about. And we went and had dinner with them, and They were really nice. There was, so we met with Caitlin, Leslie, Matt, and Bria. So those are our new people there that we kind of helping out with that. On the 23rd, I was with everybody else at the Raptor State Park opening, and it was fantastic. It was a good time. On the 27th, I was at the budget workshop, which we kind of just discussed earlier. And the 28th, the Dolores Travel Management Plan site visit with Trish. And yeah, it was great going out there and going out and checking out some of those roads and seeing all those places. And it was fun. I agree with Trish, that the process was neat. See how they rank everything, and then how everything kind of gets put from the alternative. So it was fun doing that. Yeah, we were out there by the hideout, just up on top of Onion Creek, and then overlooking Fisher Canyon. It was a beautiful spot. On the 29th, I met with Representative Kennedy. And then on the 2nd, I was with Jock and Bill for the GCAT expenditures review. That's about it.
Okay, Commissioner.
Okay, so Friday morning after our last commission meeting, I spent some time out at Corona Arch with the trail ambassadors. Many of you know, because I was dressed very informally at the Utah Raptor State Park ribbon cutting, but I just didn't have a lot of time to change. We were out there, they didn't classify it as a busy time, but I felt like we had a lot of great encounters and a lot of people that were really happy to see him out there. So then I grabbed my son, which was exciting because he got to meet the governor, and that was the first time I think that my 13-year-old son was really in a position as me as a commissioner. So it's really cool to have him along with me. I got to meet a lot of you as well. And Tuesday we had the special budget workshop meeting. Last Wednesday morning, we had our agenda review with Jacques, Bill, Stephen, Mark, and Quinn, Dana. And it's really nice to have Mary and Jacques at those meetings. I really appreciate the experience that they have and thoughts that they add to those meetings. That afternoon, we had the Economic Advisory Board. They've also done an amazing job with the RCG and RCOG recommendations that we're going to be discussing in agenda item 7. Then on Thursday, I didn't make it to Kennedy's meeting because I met with SITLA Director McConkey and Brian Torgeson. We were able to talk about the Colorado River access spots where they're wanting to withdraw water from the Colorado. It was a really good learning experience for me, and also some possible future land exchange discussions. Friday, I got to go to the Chamber Golf Tournament, which they do a great job putting on, a fundraiser for local high school scholarships. And then I was able to go out to the rodeo and saw the volunteers out there, but I was just enjoying it with my family. It's an awesome thing that we do, it's so great. We have such a great rodeo in this town. So I had some other friends with me from out of town and they really appreciated it. Then yesterday, I had the community renewable resources meeting, and it was the first time that something really exciting happened. We received word that that the Public Service Commission approved Utah Renewable Communities solicitation. A key line from the ruling was that the Public Service Commission grants Rocky Mountain Power's application and approves the Utah Renewable Communities RFP. Additionally, the Public Service Commission grants Rocky Mountain Power's motion and requested waiver with the qualification discussed in this order. And so the solicitation has been sent out and bids are due back by July 10th to move along with this process. There is some setbacks. Rocky Mountain Power has delayed their plans to file the remainder of the program application testimony 4 times. They're now projecting that will happen maybe early next week, and these delays jeopardize the program's ability to stick to contracting and resource funding timelines. So even though I'm new to that board, I feel like there's just been a lot of hurdles that they are coming across. It's another one. So it's moving slow, but it's moving. So it's moving along. So hopefully they'll get some bids. And then a future consideration, and this really came out of the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board, is one of the requests was funding from the Moab Area Housing Task Force, that they were requesting $8,500 to complete the development of a Moab housing dashboard. And so I thought it'd be good to discuss possibly using some of that $100,000 set aside for housing that you guys set out of the budget last year. And I know it wasn't chosen to fund from the RCG, but it's in the packet under number 7. You guys can look at it. We can discuss that another time.
Thank you, Melody. I will start off with, I had a meeting with Todd Thompson up at USU, who is a small business consultant that we ended up funding the position for 3 years. He is going to reach out and come in and do a presentation to us. I was very impressed. I think in the neighborhood of 30 different individuals that have been in to see him.
Wow, good.
And in an attempt to come up with business ideas. Some of them, he said, are way out there. He has had some good ones, and he's referred multiple people to our RLF and Price, and he also has several different micro loans. And he went into great length and depth on those, but I'll let him save it for his presentation here. But it's very clear that people are utilizing his position a lot there at USU, and
That's great.
he's not lacking for clients. So that was a good thing. I was very pleased to go through that with him and get the update. And I think he's already reached out to Dana to move forward. I was also part of the UAC Natural Resources and Public Lands committee meeting. We heard from Kelly Pearson at UDAF, the new commissioner. We've heard on multiple projects around the state with the rural jobs. Actually, and Kelly was the one that brought that out, that UDAF is trying to move many of their jobs into rural Utah to where those folks can help add to our economy rather than all be centered at an office in Salt Lake City. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he's looking to move some of his staff out where he can, and that's already taking place. We also heard from Zeke, who's part of the public lands and the WIR, which we funded out of the LACTEF funds that we received. And then Brandy Grace kind of finished us off on that meeting. I also was in the TRT discussion with Jacques and Brian and Gabe. Let's see, a couple other things. Back to Trish and the shooting range thing, I've also been in talks with the BLM, and I think her name is Carrie, correct? There's a lot of cleanup that needs to take place where the old shooting range is, and so there might be some possibility for our trail crew when the time comes to be able to help out with that. The Raptor, I was also at the Raptor grand opening. Mary gave a great speech. I really appreciated the fact that she called out and let the older gentleman, and I don't remember his name. But he was very happy to be called up. It was very clear he appreciated the recognition. I was also on an UMTRA tour with Congressman Kennedy. And also just a little update. I think I attempted to get this on the agenda, but I forgot about it. But I think most of you have heard that we had problems with our fire truck at the airport. And in the process of all that, I applied to the CIB for an emergency loan. It's totally separate from the regular list of the CIB applicants. And so I know that Quinn and Dana are working on that, but we'll have to have a public hearing. We'll have to approve that if we do receive the emergency loan from CIB. So I should have got that ahead sooner so that it was on this meeting, but I'm just letting you know that that's coming up. It'll be a future discussion.
Is that for a new trunk bill or for repairs to the current one?
It's for a new truck. Repairs, I will say that Mark is heavily involved in those, and we don't know yet who's gonna do those, but we have had an assessment of the truck done. So just getting that on the emergency loan funded or list at the CIB was important, and that meeting will take place and we'll know if we're approved on Thursday or Friday. We have a 2-day CIB retreat this week, and so we'll know if they're gonna approve that. The thought is, and Judd was part of this, our engineer as well, is that by getting the truck ordered, there's about a 2-year lag to order a new truck. And this will move that forward about 1.5 years, rather than wait for FAA in the future to fund that. But when FAA does fund it, then we'll repay that loan back. And so it's a juggle, and we'll have to, number one, vote on the CIB loan if we're approved for it, and then in the future vote what we're gonna participate. I'm sure the FAA will require a participation.
So it'll be a loan, not a grant.
It'll be a loan. That's the emergency portion of it, so. I think that's all that I've got. The shooting range I mentioned, I think that's all I've got. We will move on to our electeds, and Gabe, I'll let you start if you'd like.
I guess I'll just say the candidate declaration period is open for the Moab City open offices. That's two city council positions, and mayor position. And that'll close up this Friday at 5 p.m. Other than that, I'm interviewing for a vacancy in my office, and plenty busy with a number of other things. So that'll be all for now.
Thank you, Gabe. County attorney.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity, as I mentioned last time, I was at the Institute for the Community Coordinated Response for Domestic Violence. That was the week-long training that came at no cost to the county. They flew us out, paid per PM, paid for our hotels and our attendance. Detective Sterry was the one that spearheaded that. Phenomenal training. This is industry standard, best practices, wonderful training. They're really pushing a new style of prosecution, which is called evidence-based prosecution. A lot of domestic violence cases you look at and you try to prosecute with the help of the victim. And where they're looking at it, they said, look, we've done, we always prosecute homicide cases and we never have a victim, because they're deceased. And so they're starting to take best practices and utilize those and try to do domestic violence prosecutions without victim, or when the victim is sometimes adverse to the prosecution. And so that training's been phenomenal. The ICCR will be with us throughout the year. They spend the whole year with us giving training, quarterly trainings. If commissioners are interested, we'll have some presenters. They'll bring them to the town. Again, all of this is provided. All this cost is paid for. It was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. The keynote speaker at that event was the Petito family. And so it was a very well done event. They're going to be bringing a lot of resources and tools to the community. And so that'll go on through each quarter. And then next year, I'll go to that same conference for another week and give an update on the things that we've learned. So that's really exciting. Had an opportunity to meet with Commissioner Winfield and Commissioner Hadler. We are looking at the governing policies, or the policies and procedures for the governing body. I think that's the correct name of the document. And we're making some adjustments. This was a study, or this was not a study committee. It was a subcommittee that was created back in January. And I hoped and we got a meeting on the books. We're going to be looking at some adjustments, changing the language, of course, from council to commission, and making some other changes. One of the things that we brought up, and different commissioners have approached me about what the role of a commissioner is. And I've looked at other councils, for example, and other commissions, and they have limitations on commissioners' requests to staff and what that looks like, and going through a lot of different topics. What we're thinking of doing is I'm going to kind of chunk it out into different pieces with the help of the chair and Commissioner Hadler, go through it and put it all together and eventually bring to you all a red line version of it. And it's going to be substantive. And so we'll probably have to do a number of different workshops to go over that, because the policy hasn't been changed for, I think 2020 might have been the last, or 2021, the last change on it. So I'm going to just let you know, maybe in the fall, that I'm going to be bothering you guys for a number of workshops, and it's going to be very dense. So we'll have coffee and we'll make it more entertaining and enjoyable as best we can when we're talking about best practices and mission statements and all this stuff. Lastly, just kind of noting, I've brought these cases and this type of case up to you folks before. From all the trainings I've gone through with the CJC and the ICCR, I've become pretty passionate about cases that involve CSAM. And CSAM stands for sexual abuse materials. Some people know it as child pornography. And these are really tough cases. And I just want to let you know that I've looked and I'm pushing for a change at the legislature level, that if there's a type of CSAM that depicts child rape or child sodomy, that there should be a 1-year mandatory minimum in prison. And I've come out and I've talked with some legislators about that. That's something that I think is appropriate. These are some really egregious circumstances. They're not public dinner conversation. It's the type of conversation that no one wants to have. And I don't know if it's because I've gone to a bunch of training recently, I've become much more sentimental about those things. But when you handle those cases and you see those things, it is dreadful. And so I've kind of started to do a push on that. So that's everything.
Thank you, sir. Admin, Mr. Tyner.
Want to thank Stephen, even though he was out of town in training, it's always accessible. And I don't know how he did both as well as he did, but he did, so I appreciate that. We're working on filling some department head slots. Hopefully that will be done within the next couple of weeks. We'll have two and process ongoing for another, for the planning and zoning, hopefully. So those things are underway. And also I thought the host employees did a great job with the rodeo, and I want to congratulate them on that.
Thank you, sir. Quinn, you have anything?
You guys covered it.
All right, I am going to let Melody take the consent agenda as I sneak out. Oh, I'm sorry, Gabe.
I just wanted to say I didn't have minutes in the packet, so we shouldn't approve A. And if there would be a commissioner that would need to pull items E and F on my behalf, I would appreciate it.
Which? E
Items E
and
and
F.
F.
Okay.
Then do I go ahead and read them and then somebody pulls them off afterwards? Is that how that works?
Or it can happen anytime. Yeah. I'd like to pull items E and F from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Thanks, Melody.
All right, so approval of the consent agenda items is, we're gonna skip A, gonna go to ratification of the payment of bills. Total bills of $760,953.05. Total payroll of $529,372.38. So total bills and payroll is $1,290,000 to $1,290,325.43. And then we're going to, the C is ratification of Slavin contract for recruitment of planning and zoning director and county engineer. D, ratification of extension letter for All American Wash NRSCS funding. And we're going to take E and F off of the consent agenda.
Commissioner McCandless, I'm sorry, if I could just point out the on number C, ratification for the recruitment of planning and zoning director and county engineer. The county engineer may or may not be needed. Later, you can go ahead and approve it, but we may not need to pursue that.
Is that, okay, it's just the contract, okay, so Mary.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
All right, with my seconds. So I have a motion by Commissioner McGann to approve the consent agenda and a second from Mike, all in favor? All right, none opposed. And we'll move on to, so E is that we took E and F off of the consent agenda, so we're gonna move on to discussion of item E. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, please, thank you. So these are two agreements that are for the Grand County Fair. And they are spent with TRT funds and more specifically TRT 2AI, single I. And so through the negotiations with the state auditor's office last year, I love the county fair and I want to see it thrive in this community. And I think it's a great way to use TRT to support our community. And I was involved in negotiations and provided materials and provided justification to justify the use of these funds to support the Grand County Fair. And it was left alone. The auditor determined that those funds would be an allowable use for the Grand County Fair. Now that the rules have changed and we're going along with this new interpretation, I don't see how those TRT funds can be used in the same way for the support of these. So I think if these are going to be approved, it would have to be approved to be funded out of general funds.
And do you have the dollar amount? What those are?
You did 1665 for the bomb town. And then 2,500 for the photo booth. Oh, those are the two?
And to be clear, it's, there was, some $50,000 last year and $100,000 budgeted this year of those funds. And I would assume that, given the new, following of these rules, that would all have to be opened up.
So do we want to move these to a vote at the next meeting? What are we recommending here? Mike,
Pushing them to the next meeting,
pushing,
it would be ill-advised, because the contracts need to be filled to actually have them at the county fair on July 4th.
okay. Jacques,
Pretty tight now.
Are we, so, but I'm just trying to get an understanding of this. So these are just a drop in the bucket compared to, do we fund the fair of the $100,000 is all out of tier 2 promotion? The whole thing, kit and caboodle.
All of it.
So now we're,
And STAR had no problem with it.
Right. And now under the new interpretation or whatever we want to call it, we should go back and look at all these fair expenses along with the rec SSD and the other expenses.
I think the one caveat on this one is the fair is something that I think the county puts on and advertises and promotes. I think Mike said that there have been individuals that are outside the community that are going to utilize it. I think when we went through the analysis, and again, commissioners, I think Commissioner McCandless went through and said that I don't know if this is misstating the position of the commission, but my understanding is we were looking at the reviewed expenditures. Is that where we ended up? That it was the green ones that were accepted on that list?
I don't think we ended up.
well, there was no vote taken. We had.
Well, there was
an opinion.
Sure. But there were 3 people that indicated that they were likely going to want to put all of the items there. And there was one person that said that they were willing to put the green items there. So if we, I don't know what that thing's called with the things that have the overlapping area, but it sounds like.
Venn diagram.
Venn diagram, thank you. If we're there, then I don't know that you guys would be on board with these. Again, this is something that is it promoting and establishing this thing's blown up. It's got photographs if you're looking at one. I mean, that's kind of the analysis that we did on our meeting with Jacques, as we kind of walked through each individual item and said, is this promotion? Is this the establish and promote? So I don't know if this is something you guys want to do for all the items. I think we can. I think the fair is unique-ish in the sense that it is its own event. It is the creation of an event that exists to promote and bring people in. And there could be a different argument than the Trail Ambassador program, which is Trails Plus. You're having the trails exist there and you're getting an add-on to that trail experience, whereas people are they would not come out to OSTA but for this event and these add-ons. So it's up to you guys what you want to do. I think, again, if we go into the range of things that are more defensible than not, I think putting on a fair and inviting people and promoting it and pushing it out there. I mean, again, defensible, likely, yes.
Mike, please.
You go for it.
Okay, I figure most of what we were about to say is gonna parallel.
Yeah.
The event has advertised outside of Grand County our local area, Grant Junction, Emery County, side of Green River, San Juan County, bring people to the Grant County Fair. Not that we don't love the San Juan Fair, but we are promoting down there for the Grant County Fair. So.
Trish, go ahead.
I actually I've kind of just gone to the fair just really quickly, but haven't, sat. One thing I'll say about the rodeo, because I always work the ticket booth, is it's about half and half. If I were to make a general assessment, it's about half locals and half for, tourists, which is really cool. And I would assume there'd be a similar kind of turnout for the fair. Who knows? But I mean, a county fair is for its residents. My county fair was so that I could show my hog, to be honest, right? Like it was a way to display what you had grown that year. So we can make an assumption that you know, it is for our residents, but that it also in an aside, it's attracting tourists. So I don't know where you guys want to sit on that. I
It's,
mean, maybe we do it and we'll have to know that we'll have to pay it back, but as Brian said, and this isn't, I'm not punching it. You know, is it too close to the line, right?
Melody, please.
I'm gonna classify it right there in that green bucket with trail ambassador stuff. I know that as I was, Brian and I discussed a little bit about, use of like the recreation service district, it's like we have ballparks and those ballparks used, and if we were to do an event that we went and pushed to the outside group, we could use that money for advertising, even though the local kids or adults or whatever are gonna be using those fields and they're gonna be going to that event as well, you're also pushing it outside. So I think this would be similar. I mean, this county fair is a little different. It's not really a 4-H county fair showing animals. It's really, it's got that in there, but it's kind of like an amusement park. I mean, it's got a lot of other things going on. It's got concerts and things. So I think that it would fit in that, where I would put a defensible use of TRT money, but that's my opinion on this particular piece.
Hey, go ahead, please. Sorry if I missed your.
No. So yeah, I agree. I think it's defensible. The conversation about the GCAP programming, that was really centered around solicitation materials that are solicitations, materials that are taken away by tourists. There was it's very clearly promotion as it's currently being considered. And so I don't doubt if there's advertising going out of town, absolutely, that seems clear and square. But a rock crawling group and a photo booth, if that's the measure we're using, it's completely inconsistent with what we're adopting right now.
I disagree. And the reason why we're disagreeing, and why I disagree, is because some of the things that we went through, and I'd encourage the commissioners to run through the play-by-play on the breakdown. I mean, and the reason why I'm cautioning the clerk auditor on the language on this is, I think for us to categorize these different things in the way that we did, there were some give and takes on them and some adjustments and change. I think it's fair. I think it's probably an overstatement to say that we didn't go through and discuss those things and have a more reasonable basis to flag something as green versus red versus purple. And so the other nuance is, when people are coming to these events, they're going to these specific individual separate booths for that entertainment, that recreation purpose. That's different than the trail program. I push back on that assessment.
I'll go to Brian and then Mike or a motion.
that's where I was going, unless you're going there.
No,
I was gonna start with Brian, so then.
Yeah, just real quick. I think that a lot of this could have been avoided if it had gone to the tax advisory board prior to this. Right, I think had this gone, yeah, we have a tax advisory board for this tax right here. So had this gone to our tax advisory board, right, and had been part of a marketing plan, I think that it would be a little bit clearer. I think one of our mistakes right now is this is kind of sitting out here on its own, right? Same way with the trail ambassador expenditures that we were talking about earlier, right? They're out there on their own department, which makes it less likely that it's tourism. We have a tax advisory board that's by statute to provide recommendations for spending of that tax. Had this been sitting in front of them and they said, yes, this is a way that we'd like to spend this, it's part of our marketing plan or it's part of our long-term goal, I think that would be a little bit closer for me.
Mike, please.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the independent contract agreement for the 2025 Grand County Fair with Boomtown.
Bob.
Yes.
And you want to just lump them both in together?
No.
You just
No, I don't.
Okay. All right.
We're
Motion by
coming out fair
Commissioner-
on the next one, don't worry.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner McCandless. Do we have any other discussion? Jock.
I think all this falls under promotion. just say that. I think everything we've discussed up till now, I've made my position exceptionally clear. But I also think what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if we're going to be taking a really hard under the microscope look at every other expense, I think this deserves the same scrutiny. I'll just go out and say that.
Anybody else? Mary?
I'm gonna be real quick. You know, it is, I feel like this is it feels hypocritical, you know, kind of. We're gonna do this, but we're not gonna do this. We're gonna, you know, it's like. It's a gray area in both. In some ways.
Yes, Commissioner McCann.
And just to clarify, are we paying it out of TRT funds? Are we paying it out of
This one,
the
yes.
capital, this first one, TRT funds?
Yes.
And then I would like to make a recommendation that next year this goes in front of the travel, we'll have a travel advisory board, so.
Tax advisor.
Yeah, tax advisory board. I mean, that's what it is, travel council, basic, the advisory board.
Right.
Yeah, MTAP, the MTAP. So, so that they can approve it in advance. But we didn't get to have that control last year, so this year we can at least request that.
Call for a vote.
All right, all those in favor of approving this to come out of the TRT promotion money, those in favor? Those against? Motion fails with Commissioner.
I'm abstaining.
I'm abstaining too. I'm getting snail-eyed here. I never abstain, but. I mean.
So again, the motion fails with two abstaining. What's that?
No. You need 4 affirmative votes, so the vote fails with commissioners who were against. Commissioner McGann, so it'd be two against Commissioner McGann and Commissioner McCurdy, and then 2 abstentions, Commissioner Hadler and Commissioner Hadeen.
Correct, as you stated. Okay, moving forward. We are on to F.
Well, you could have a replacement motion if
You can have a dissent.
Like a replacement motion perhaps,
Okay, please.
is that we approve this expenditure of for the town now to determine where the funding comes from after clarification. But that we approve it so you can get the contract, but to work out the. That's a very bad motion.
Motion by Commissioner McGann, seconded by Commissioner Martinez. Melody, please start the discussion.
Well, I don't know when the clarification is gonna come. I mean, ultimately, we discussed that earlier today about
With
clarification.
our budget.
Okay, so we're gonna have the same conversation again with the budget amendments. So I'm just curious if people are gonna abstain from those as well, because you can't make a vote today at this moment in time, you're gonna make a vote then, on the exact same situation. So we have to that's where we're gonna start.
I think we
Making some-
need to become
I'd
clear.
like to let our county attorney weigh in real quick because.
So if you guys want clarification, again, previously the meeting, the clerk auditor indicated that all the expenses were approved in his mind. So where are we looking for clarification on this particular item from?
Well, does it fall into the same area that our trail ambassadors are?
Who would you like to make that determination? Because our clerk auditor said that all the expenses would be in this would be as well. Would you like other commissioners to?
Commissioners will make the decision when we do our budget amendment.
Okay, in the meantime, do you guys want to
Alex,
approve that to be paid for out of your general fund? Do you not want to approve it at this time? What do you guys want to do? Because otherwise we can't fund a contract without knowing where the money's coming from.
Right, the motion would need to include the.
Do I need to substitute her motion? And can I do that being from the previous vote?
Okay.
Yeah, you could pull it out of your discretionary fund. If this is what you guys want to spend that money on.
Sounds like a good spend.
So do we need a substitute motion?
Yeah, out of discretionary fund. Well,
Yeah, if that's probably
that
cleaner.
puts it in kind of a gray area when we decide
So
it's already budgeted.
Okay,
I'd like to make it a substitute motion to approve the independent contract agreement for the 2025 Grand County Fair with Boomtown out of commission discretionary fund.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Commissioner McCurdy and seconded by Commissioner Hedin to pull this money out of the commission discretionary funds for Boomtown at the county fair. All those in favor? Oh, excuse me, John.
I just had a,
I'm sorry.
I wanted to clarify, do we know how much is in our discretionary?
50,000.
How much is it? 50?
I have to look, it's north of 50, but yeah.
Okay,
I'll look.
thank you. That's fine. I just wanted to estimate. I don't need an exact number.
All right, any further discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? All right, that passes unanimously, none opposed. Commissioner McCurdy?
Letter F. I'd like to make a motion to approve the independent contract agreement for the 2025 Grand County Fair with Moab Photo Booth. And it was 2,500
Correct.
for 2,500 out of commission discretionary fund. And discussion item, if I get a second.
All right, motion by Commissioner McCurdy to approve this one out of the commission discretionary funds. Do I have a second? Commissioner Martinez seconds. Mike's
Discussion, I really feel like if anything could fall in that gray area, and I don't want stuff to fall in that gray area, it would be a service at the fair, and this is a service at the fair. Instead of an attraction bringing outside tourism in, such as our previous approval of the entertainment, Boomtown, that this is a photo booth at the fair. I really feel like if it was to fall in the indefensible, that would be the photo booth far more than the entertainment for the fair. So I'd like to pay it out of discretionary funds.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. We will move on. Was that the only two items that were pulled out?
Yeah.
A was not addressed because they're in the minutes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So then we will move on to item number 3, the non-conversion agreement. This has Commissioner Hedin and Ms. Hoffine.
Oh. So, this was brought to my attention, in my temporary role. Staff in the planning office was asked to sign off on this and she chose not to, so that it came to me. This is something that shouldn't be a problem going forward, and it's, because of staffing changes in the planning office and the zoning or the building department. But it was already on here, so I thought I'd discuss it with you guys a little bit. This is the kind of agreement that should always go through our county attorney's office. Apparently these have been sort of being done outside of that. So the reason that it's being brought to you now is because only the commission should have signatory authority on something that the county is agreeing to. And it should always be done through the county attorney's office, which is why it was being brought to you guys. It shouldn't be an issue going forward because we're entering into a new sort of phase of planning and zoning and building, but that's why it's on here and that's why I need a motion from you guys today.
Commissioner McCurdy.
I'd like to make the motion. I move to approve the ratification of the non-conversion agreement between the county and the owner of real property located at 3106 South Spanish Valley Drive.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner McCurdy, seconded by Commissioner Martinez. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
But you just real quick, and so you guys kind of just read that background. Did you guys read the background, just so you kind of have an understanding of it?
And small discussion.
Please.
I see why it happened now. Will this decision continue to fall to commission in the end?
Yes.
Because it seems like a departmental.
This decision should always fall to the commission after going through the county attorney's office. This should never be something that would be decided by staff. That was one of the reasons that it's being brought to you now, because this is something that is it was first brought to the county attorney's office back in 2020, and it had been sort of, I don't want to say pirated, but it's been sort of taken on by staff as something that they're doing. but it's not something that should be happening that way. And when it came to my attention, I pulled it and
And it doesn't fall under the
land use code.
zoning administrator's purview?
No, so the zoning administrator can only sign off on things that are approved by ordinance by you guys, blessed by you guys. Each of these is an independent agreement, so they would need to go through the county attorney's office, and Stephen could probably speak to this more articulately than I can, but it would need to go through a legal review. These are legally binding. They're recorded on property in perpetuity, and so all of these need to be looked at independently within the county attorney's office.
How many of these we see a year?
I have no idea. That was the first time that this is my, this was, you know,
I just know that we're cleaning it up.
I don't like that it was happening, so I started.
If the county attorney agrees with that, I
Yeah,
would appreciate a comment.
yeah, so I agree with that. I think the only headache, whenever the entity finds something that likely should have been corrected or isn't done appropriately, best practice would be to go dig up within reason and find, because these, I don't know if they were done, and I don't know if they've gone through and filed deed restrictions on them.
This deed restrictions would be done depending on whether it's considered an ADU or not. And so most of them, it's a deed restriction is removed.
Right.
It's another thing that was kind of weird to me about this whole agreement.
So I mean, in best practice would be to track these, have these be some method and mechanism for tracking on making sure the signatory authority, because we're responsible for ensuring that the agreement goes through, and we had a lot of agreements that we didn't necessarily know. And when I say we, I mean the county commission and that, and we didn't set this up in a mechanism. If you guys don't want to see these, definitely you can pass some documents to give that authority through the ordinance, but that's not what was done, so.
And when I say a lot, I mean, it's a handful. I don't think that this is like a common occurrence. I don't want you guys to think that there's
Yeah.
millions.
Probably less than 10.
Yeah,
So-
so.
Just to follow, this decision goes to the recorder's office and it's recorded along with.
The document the document would go there, but it's not their decision, just the document.
So then I'm just saying, in the future purchaser of this, when they will title, this comes right up.
Yeah, it's not something that's hidden. It runs in perpetuity with the real property.
Okay.
Commissioner Hadeen.
I guess, and this kind of relates to Brian since you're on the WISA board, but you know, when you have an ADU, I have an ADU on my property, I pay impact fees. I think I paid like 12 grand in impact fees. That was kind of, you know, if you think about somebody leaving, in this case, leaving a structure, they built a house and then that structure was supposed to go away, right? And it's still there. In theory, they should have had 2 impact fees applied to that property. And this was a way to kind of say, well, we're not going to use that property as a house, right? As an ADU, it's just got additional living space. But you know, the issue with something like this is, you know, WISA should be getting impact fees on 2 structures, right? Being paid to them. So just kind of how it applies to that, right? And so you don't want to bypass that. You want to make sure that those impact fees are being paid because they have an impact on the infrastructure, water and sewer. So just.
Okay, barring further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, which is the approval of media production services for Who is Moab campaign videos. Ms. Hartford,
Hello.
Moab Office of Tourism.
Hi. So we have been wanting to do a project like this, or I have since I started in this office. And so the project was approved to solicit quotes at the February TAB meeting, and then those quotes were reviewed during the most recent meeting. And so I'm here today with the quotes and the recommendation from the MTAB to do this project with Real Creative.
Brian, please.
I move to approve the media production project with Real Creative and authorize the chair to sign the associated agreement upon completion of legal review.
Motion by Commissioner Martinez, seconded by Commissioner McCurdy. Discussion by Commissioner McCurdy.
How the board see it?
They like it. Really what we're buying with this project and what I told the board too is licenses to the videos that these guys are gonna make. And so the documentaries will be great for media and they'll be really fun. But really what I'm excited about is like B-roll footage of people rafting and climbing. And
Along with that, two-part there, now we own. In this, we own this
Yes.
B-roll, et cetera, footage.
Mhm.
So we can, I mean, later on,
Forever.
yeah, forever.
Yeah, it's going into a physical hard drive. It's gonna go online.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll own it.
Okay, barring further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. We can move on to,
Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Hartford. Move on to number 5, an ordinance establishing a Grand County tax sale procedure. This is Mr. Wojtek, our clerk auditor.
Thanks, Chair. So we were pretty close to potentially having a tax sale come up this year. And fortunately that was resolved and the owner was able to find a buyer still not quite finalized, but it's almost certain that the back taxes will be paid and all the penalties and interest. There hasn't been a tax sale in almost 20 years. It's quoted in the packets. I think it's 2006 was the last time it happened. Obviously, property values and demand are quite high here. So even when folks are behind, they're usually able to find someone to buy and settle up. So it's not really much of an issue. I'm glad it isn't one of these things that, in other counties, there are several tax sales and it's quite an administrative process. And so anyway, the administrative rules state that the county should have an ordinance on the books to be able to handle the procedures of those sales. And so just clarifying, I did cancel the public notice associated with the potential tax sale, but we're gonna just keep moving this forward and put it on the books in case in the future it were to come up. And I really thank Treasurer Kaufman for his help in setting this up, and also for his help in taking great personal care and working with any property owners that are in danger of tax sale. And helping navigate with them options for deferral and other ways to avoid that from happening.
And I echo the thanks. I think it's great that we get to address these things and appreciate the clerk and the treasurer on putting this together and making sure that we have these things ready to go so that we don't have to address them after the fact. So I appreciate both their work on this.
Commissioner McCurdy.
I'd like to make the motion. I move to approve the ordinance establishing the Grand County tax sale procedure.
Motion by Commissioner McCurdy, seconded by Commissioner McCandless. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We will now move on to
Thanks, Chris.
number 6. Approval.
I will note that when it goes out on the screen, it stays on YouTube fine. So.
Okay.
Good, so we're not losing
No.
the whole thing. Cool. All right, approval of the fiscal year 2025 Airport Infrastructure Grant Agreement Part 1. Offer contract 349-020-048-2025 to construct taxi lanes E, G, and J. And I believe that this is probably me. I'll give a little bit of background on this. This is a grant from the FAA that amounts to $2,032,062.48 with a match fund from Grand County, and I'm not seeing the dollar amount, $125,064.48. And so this is a item that we would need to approve the match funds for this item. And although I don't know the total dollar amount that will be moved back into the airport budget, but there is money moving into the airport budget and sometime here in the near future that was removed during the COVID years when we were receiving CARES funds and different funds. So this 125K could possibly come out of that is my guess. So Commissioner McCurdy.
I move to accept the Federal Aviation Administration grant number 48 in the amount of $2,376,208 for the construction of taxi lanes at Canyonlands Regional Airport and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents and contracts.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner McCurdy, second by Commissioner McCandless. Start us off, Trish, and then I'll come over.
So, and maybe you don't know, Bill, so when you say that money was moved, so maybe you're saying it's somewhere in the general fund and then it's gonna be moved. But in theory, it's still a part of that when we're looking at those numbers today. It's within those numbers. Does that make sense? So meaning these are additional expenditures that we're adding. Makes sense, or is it?
No, this is some money that was taken out of the airport budget. All money that's earned at the airport stays at the airport per FAA
Okay,
regulation.
gotcha.
The number has been somewhat of a moving target, and Gabe, who has exited, has not finalized what that dollar amount is. It was at $1.1 million
Okay,
that needed to go back to the airport. I don't know where we will end up because that number seems to be changing for Gabe, so I can't speak to it. So it is not coming out of this budget. It's money that has to go back to the airport per FAA.
I understand. I guess what I'm saying is it somewhere in our general fund? I mean, it's coming from somewhere, right? And I guess I'm just,
It's coming from earnings at the airport,
okay,
right? If that money is due back to the airport, it's money that was earned at the airport.
right, okay, okay. I guess I'm still not understanding.
Commissioner McGann, I wish that we had the clerk auditor.
I think you answered it. So it's really gonna be, when you said approved and within budget, it will be come from the airport budget.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
And I know that Mark has been a part of those conversations and can support what I'm saying. The clerk auditor clearly isn't here to speak to it.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Yep.
Commissioner Mann.
Can you enlighten me a little bit on this tax lane F? For 666,000?
Taxi lane F is not fundable by the FAA. And so that is a third taxiway. Actually, it would be considered a fourth because the first part of the grant. And so that's an additional quote from the contractor that will be doing the other taxiways on FAA funding. So this additional 600,000 would also have to come out of airport budget or county budget if we want to move forward on it. I can't speak to that dollar amount. I would imagine that that has to come before the commission in a separate agenda item. Yes. Commissioner McCurdy.
To shorten this down, we put in 125 grand, we get 2.4 million.
Basically, yes.
Okay. That man and I like them odds.
Okay, any further discussion?
Stephen, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't know exactly how those, I don't know exactly how those funds work, but if only we had somebody that could answer that question.
No further discussion? Call for a vote. Those in favor of supporting the FAA grant at the airport? Those opposed? Motion passes 6-1, excuse me. I don't know where that math came from.
That's right.
Commissioner Hadeen against.
And I just want to,
Move on.
you mind if I just state that I just didn't feel like I have complete clarification as to where that money's coming from, and in these times I'm not real comfortable spending that. I think it's a great match. It just freaked me out.
Okay, the last thing we want is You freaked out. So we'll move on to item number 7. Consideration of Economic Advisory Board grant application recommendations for state rural grants. And I would like to state that I think that there was a lot of effort went into this from our board. I think that they did a good job of sorting out. I think there were 57 applicants, and I'm appreciative of the fact that the transparency and the openness of these grants that we received out of this, and that we were able to open this up out into the community further. And so that, I think that was a big push of mine from the very beginning when I came on as a commissioner, that these grants would be much more open to the public and transparent on what we were doing with them. And so as we move forward, I would like to comment that I would like to see a slight change in this, and that I would like to see the grant for the Chamber of Commerce reduced to $10,000 and the remaining 15,000 split between the two childcare applicants that didn't receive anything here. I do think that the chamber has received money in the past. I would justify this based off of that, but I also would say that we have put a ton of money into just one individual on childcare, and that I think that we need to open this up a little bit, although it's hard to see childcare as an economic development. I think that they carry a huge burden for the working class in this community that allows them to have jobs, which is a big part of our economy and economics here, whether it's tourism or other related. These daycares are a huge part of what we're doing in my mind. Commissioner McCurdy.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the consideration of Economic Advisory Board grant applicant recommendations as stated, not as listed. Can I do that?
He hasn't named the entities.
All the rest.
It's childcare.
And
Okay.
Rock Tots.
All right, I will state those two childcare.
Thank you.
Does he need to state all of the?
Whoever he's suggesting giving funds to, we just need the names.
Jasper Rock Tops.
That's what I heard.
That's what they.
Jasper Daycare is one of them, and I forget, I had these written down in my notebook, but I apologize.
Jasper's daycare.
Jasper Daycare, and the second one is oh, there it is, Rock Tots. So I know it's very unusual.
Is that a compass?
So, and so that 15,000 would be split evenly between those two childcare entities.
So just to make it clean for the record, you're saying golf course 75,000, Artesian 45,000, Chamber of Commerce 10,000, Moab Brewery 25,000, Mini Mount 30,000, Rock Tots $7,500, and Jasper's Daycare $7,500.
Yes, correct.
I want to make it stated so it's clear.
All right,
That's my motion.
okay. Motion by Commissioner McCurdy, second, anyone?
I'll second, but I want to discuss too.
Sure, I think Brian beat you to it, so I'll let him have the second, and then you can open up the discussion.
Okay, and we also didn't accept the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant of the $600,000, so we'll have to do that in a different motion. But they worked really, really hard on this, and it is, going against what they recommended, and I'm that liaison for them, but I think that majority of that group would agree with that split. Had it been brought up again, just based on the discussions, and you can go back and watch the last meeting, they've been working on this since February, put a lot of effort, a lot of work, reviewed those, and at the very end, I think they were kind of like, well, is there anybody we were forgetting? And we didn't go back into that list of the 57. And so I appreciate you guys going back to that list, because I do think that it's fair to give those two daycares some money based on the fact that we've given a lot of money to a daycare out there. So anyways, I feel like I just wanted to put that out there because we are going against their recommendation, but I think it's a really good recommendation.
I've got further discussion, but Jacques, go ahead, please.
I just didn't, I don't know about the other daycares. Actually, my daughter attended one of the daycares that was recommended. So I know she runs a quality operation, but I think this board does a great job. I think they worked super hard on this. They didn't have a staff member working on them this year because they didn't have that position. We just approved that position, but it hasn't been hired yet. So my inclination would be just to defer to their recommendations. As for the Chamber of Commerce, I'm no longer the liaison to that board, but I was for the last 4 years, and I was last year when they ran their business summit. And I just wanted to disagree with one of the citizens to be heard that I think he stated that business summit was just an election vehicle for current chamber president, who was actually not the chamber president last year. That was Shaylee Bryant, and I attended that business summit. I thought the chamber did a good job with that, and I think they did a good job with it on the year before also. And I believe this 25,000 was to be used for the business summit. At least that's what it said in the materials, I think. So I would wonder where if that would even be happening this year, because I know it costs a lot more than $10,000 to fund that. So that would be a concern of mine. Otherwise, I'm very happy with all the other decisions they made.
Any other comments? I would like to make a comment, but I would like our attorney back in here when I do so.
Someone else, sorry.
I guess the further discussion that I'd like to have around this is we're asking citizens to put money forward here, or actually we're using grant money, go towards the golf course, the Moab Brewery and multi-mini mount, will all of them. And what I would like to see on these grants moving forward is that there's something in the contract that asks them to come back for final payment. We don't just hand out a lump sum, but we break that up and then they come back with some sort of an update on what they use the money for. And for instance, like the multi-mini mount, I'm a little bit aware of that one because I know this gentleman. I'd like to know, are we creating jobs? You know, where does this money take us? Because economic development, we should see something for our money that benefits this community and a tax base. So is it employment? Moab Brewery, what are we getting from Moab Brewery for this money? So I'd just like to see the contracts tightened up a little bit so that maybe it's a 75-25 and maybe it's too late for that on this one, that we need to look at something in the future. And I'll let the county attorney speak to that, but having some accountability to come back and get the rest of that money at the end, to me, seems like an incentive to come back with a great report or a report on what actually happened.
So when the state came down and walked us through and they did a good presentation, they said that the contracting or additional terms are ensuring that the expenditure is provided appropriately. We can create contracts with them. That's what they did indicate. Here's kind of the rub or the difficulty for me. I can draft a contract. I can put kind of the same things that we've had previously with the STAR grant or the special event grant, and they've done in the past a 90-10 split that they, shows that you've expended 90% of the funds on the particular thing that you were spending on, and then come back to do a final report and get the last 10%. That's been helpful in the past. People have completed the reports and documents and come back for that. Additional conditions makes it a little trickier because I don't know what you guys want. So if you guys said like something that's within the scope, you said, hey, we want a report that you've spent all the funds or the 90% of the funds on the items that the EOAB stated or that's in your application or things like that, and document that. I think that's a very reasonable request. And to have them do a report that shows that it's creating jobs or things like that, again, reasonable request. Where I think it becomes harder is kind of micromanaging a little bit deeper into what they're going to spend it on. Like, I don't know if we have the manpower to say, oh, the golf course is going to spend it on watering. Like, we're going to go out there and watch them put in the PVC pipes? Probably not. So I can put together a sample contract for us to look through to make sure that the expenses are done in the correct way. Happy to do that. That's something that we've done with all of our grants that we've done, from the STAR grants to the special event grants and so on and so forth. Happy to do that. I think it'd be cleanest if they could spend the money within 6 months, but I don't know the depths of the applications. So I don't know if 6 months is a reasonable expenditure period of time or not. So again, that's some of the issues that I would have for drafting contracts now.
I'll start with Mike and then go to Melody.
This kind of goes towards Mark and Stephen. Wouldn't, like I stated previously with HR, wouldn't this fall under the purview of the economic development position to follow through on contracts? I mean, this is what they would be looking at.
Yeah, it certainly could. And in the absence of that, I think it would be perfectly reasonable for com admin to communicate with the county attorney's office. To at least let you know, so he can put it together.
And one thing before I forget, I want to thank Chris Wilson and Melissa Jeffers, and I don't know who else, and Commissioner Canlis and who else designed the form and did the intake. They put a ton of effort into this. They processed 50 applications instead of 2. The outreach was phenomenal. I really appreciate the hard work. They had long meetings to discuss this, and I think it was done in a really stand-up way. So I wanted to mention that. That's all I had.
Melody.
So, yeah, Dana and
Dana and Mark.
Dana, Mark and Quinn, they helped a bunch as well. And so the money's gonna come in for this RCG grant. We're gonna receive the money October, November, December-ish. That's when the money's gonna come to us. And then that reporting is due by July 30th, I think, of next year. So right now we're in the process that just opened up on May 15th, opened up the reporting period for last year's funds, which went to our childcare. So we have a copy of that. Could you email a copy of that report to all of us just so we know what it looks like?
Yeah.
Chris had it at the meeting the other day, but I haven't seen it. So if we get that reporting has to be done for each of these, and that has to be done by July of next year. So we would expect that the money would be spent by the time that we did that report, or reasoning why that it wouldn't. So I think it all fits in that time zone. And we'd also, so the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board is getting that information back. I think it just necessarily isn't all coming, it's not coming to the commission. But I think that that's something that I could report back on next year, or whoever's the board liaison next year for that position, you know, once that information came back. So I think, but it'd be interesting to look at that report that they're asking right now. I haven't seen it yet, and see if there's anything additional that we'd want to ask.
Yeah, and the other neat thing that they could do, because there's that time gap between now and when they receive the funds, they could also look at items that we would, I think, reasonably reimburse that fall within the mission.
They can be reimbursed. They can be reimbursed.
So that's something else when they're looking forward at their application. And I'll say this, and we've done this in the past for other grants. We have made adjustments or amendments to what their original spend was going to be on, if it's within a reasonable range as well. So some people might get the funds, and I don't know that anybody on this. I mean, maybe if they didn't do a beer garden, not trying to pick on the brewery, but maybe they wanted to not do it at the food truck park and wanted to do it somewhere else or something like that. We've had circumstances where we've asked to kind of slightly pivot from the application, but we asked them to be upfront about it. Say, hey, look, we don't want to do it this way. We want to shift slightly, and we've had that be successful with that.
My neighbor. Okay, further discussion? I will call for a vote on the motion.
Do you mind, Bill, just reviewing the motion real quick? Ish.
Sure. The motion is to fund the golf course at 75,000, Artisan at 45,000, Chamber of Commerce at 10,000, Moab Brewery at 25,000, multi-mini mount at 30,000. The Jasper's Daycare at 7,500 and the Rock Tots at 7,500. Commissioner McCurdy, you made the motion. I believe Commissioner Martinez seconded that. So those in favor of the motion as stated? Those opposed? Motion passes 4-3 with Commissioner Hedin, Commissioner Adler, and Commissioner McGann opposed. And we will move on to,
State why I voted opposed, is that I just wanted to support. Yeah, I know how hard that board worked. And I know they probably considered the Jasper daycare and the Tots very seriously before they came up with their decision. So I felt it was important to go with their recommendations. As of all the boards I've been on in the past, that's probably one of the hardest working. You know,
I appreciate that. All right.
You should watch the shows. If you haven't watched them, maybe you should watch them.
I would also maybe add to the fact as we're looking at contracts and drawing this up, some of these, if there's a promotional aspect to them, that the county retains some of the advertising rights. I don't know about the golf course or the beer garden, but if there's something that could be done there, I would want the county to be able to utilize or to advertise that this grant went out from the county type of thing.
Okay, but yeah, but you're not talking about the county is not purchasing the intellectual property.
No.
No, okay. You're just saying that you'd like to be able to highlight the fact that these funds
Sure.
were expended. Yeah, and I think that's very reasonable as well.
Okay, so we will move on then to number 8, the CJC Advisory Board Liaison Assignments. The agenda here, let's look at
Oh,
this.
hang on. What about the $600,000?
Oh, yeah, we have to make it.
Oh.
Yep.
Back to
Another motion part.
That wasn't on the,
No, it's
Okay.
still though.
so we're adding an agenda item?
No, it's on there.
We're back to item number 7.
Okay, all right, back to item number 7, Melody.
I will make a motion to approve the 600,000, well, it's not approving $600,000. We're just making a recommendation to support the Grand County EMS training program, destination training program as our rural communities opportunity grant. So they will go and forward that on.
And that's for the, it's contained in the second attachment, and it looks like it's down on page 2 that lists recommended funding package, rural communities opportunity grant, Grand County EMS destination EMS training program, recommended amount $600,000, just so that people can see it.
Motion by Commissioner McCandless, second by Commissioner McCurdy. Discussion? Melody.
And just so everyone here in the community knows, that is not, we do not get to choose that. It's a competitive grant that goes up to the state. I know we all learned that in the training, but, and so we are just agreeing that that's what we want to go forth for Grand County. And so we'll find out, and it's really great because the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity will work with them and help them to get their application in and all that. That will go in November, so they have a lot of time to work on that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor of the $600,000 grant, the Grand County EMS.
And again, just a clarification, this is recommending.
Recommend.
It's not, there's no fiscal impact. It's not that we're giving them funds, that we're just supporting their application to the rural communities grant.
It's the only way they could.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make it clear.
You'll still plan to do it.
Go Yo Grant.
All right, those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. We will move on to item number 8, the CJC Board Liaison Assignments, and this came about after the last meeting when I made the request of Mary and haven't heard anything, so I just figured we would put it on here for a vote. This has 2 liaisons currently, Commissioner Hedin and Commissioner McGann, and I know that Commissioner McGann has put a lot of time and effort over the years into this, and I'm not in any way discounting or taking that away from Mary for as far as the efforts that she's put in there, but I have asked that I be replaced on that board or be the replacement on that board to participate in those CJC meetings. Commissioner McCurdy.
I'd like to make the motion for these or recommend motion to the CJC Advisory Board Liaison Assignments. Commissioner Hedin Commissioner Winfield. And as a third fill-in, if either of you need a fill-in, I would like to take that place. In talking with County Attorney Stocks, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have any conflicts and we're good. That was my exiting meeting, so.
Yeah, I've got a raise the level of it. Again, I think it's important to understand what the CJC advisory board does. It's an advisory process. I don't want to say anything to explain circumstances, but it's an advisory board that meets cross-section of the community. They do not review cases. They do not talk about the cases, do not handle the budget. It is a meet and converse about kind of the goals and missions of the CJC. It is very a soft, fluffy board, so they're not controlling any funds or making any decisions on any of the cases, how the prosecutor proceeded. So yeah,
It's really just the sharing of, so Moab City Police will share what they're up to, right? ECFS will share, it's an hour long, it's pretty mellow. Yep.
All right, so I've got a motion on the table, Commissioner McCurdy. I will look for a second, and then we can open it up for discussion if we want.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner McCurdy, seconded by Commissioner Martinez. Discussion, anyone? Mike?
Never wanted to discount Mary putting the work for years on this. And I just want to make that first and foremost.
Yep, I appreciate that. I appreciate all the effort that you've put in over the years as well, Mary.
So can I why did you feel this was necessary?
I got that.
Oh, you're gonna answer that question?
Yeah, I can answer that one.
Oh, but who came up with the idea? Did you come up with the idea?
No, I mean, in reading this, yes.
You came up with the idea?
Just looking at this, yeah.
Okay, this was okay.
No, my motion just came up by reading.
Oh, I understand that. No,
And
I guess I'm just wanting to know why.
Because there's been 5 absences, we're talking about 1.25 years of not making those meetings, and I just felt like it would be a good opportunity for me to step in and be a part of that. I was a big push to help the CJC out recently and feel like it would just be a good fit.
Okay,
So
I mean, I think
I don't see anybody else wanting to fill that vacancy that's being held there, although I would certainly consider others if they wanted to.
I think the assumption, and I didn't read the specifics on the bylaws, was that, one commissioner which I'm the chair, is needed. And I think, Mary came and was like, you got it, and so if we're gonna start doing 2 commissioners for every board, which is fine.
We're not doing 2 commissioners for every board. This board just has 2 commissioners.
And that's specifically the verbiage in the bylaws?
No,
Melody, please.
it's not in the bylaws. And as I was reading it over, and if we look on, just back at our meeting in January, Trish is the liaison for that board. Mary's not listed as a liaison, but obviously she's on there somewhere. And maybe she's one of the 4 community members at large, and then she's not a commission liaison. I don't know. I'm confused too, because I was just trying to figure it out. I would imagine there'd be something in the bylaws, which there's not, about attendance. Most boards that I've been on in my life have, if you miss X amount of them and consecutively, you can be removed and replaced, but I don't read that in here either. Anyways, those are just my thoughts on reading.
Mary, please.
Yes, my understanding was, because I've been on the board for a long time, is that it was a designee. That the Grand County executive or designee, that I interpreted that as one person, and I know that Connie Hancock, when she was the head of the CJC, that's how she thought of it. So my absence was because I thought that I was the backup. It wasn't because I was being neglectful and not choosing to go. I know Trish wanted to have the assignment, and so I said, okay, I will let that go. I would like to be the backup. If you can't make it, would you get a hold of me? So I just want to make it very clear that it was never my intention to neglect the board. I've always taken my board assignments very seriously. I just, from my understanding and from the bylaws, it said designee and my experience under Connie, and she did an incredible job. And then we had a couple people who canceled almost every board until until we got Angie. And so then, anyway, so I just was kind of blindsided by this.
Mike, I'll go to you next and then Trish.
Thank you.
My decision coming out of this agenda item was you guys were our group's direct contact with the CGC, looking current expenditures. I know the board doesn't deal with financials, but I mean, you two having a direct tie-in currently with it was my idea. I didn't want to get too close because I had fears of a conflict. But I mean, in the nearer future, I feel like I'll be fully relieved of that, and I'd like to work with the CJC if you'd ever depart. But that's a end of the year discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Not right now.
Thank you, Mike. Trish?
Stephen, can you just solidify that your interpretation of the bylaws, that there should be more than one commissioner, because it just does said designee. So I view that as singular.
I think the only kind of tricky point, and I don't know, this was a long time ago. We had an appointment of a chair and a vice chair. And we're the chair and she was the vice chair. And that was back on you guys' meeting with the first one you guys went when Andrea set it up. So I don't think there is, I don't see anything in these bylaws that say that. But right now, if it just kind of, the tricky thing is right now, if one commissioner, if you don't go to the meeting, then Andrea has to run the meeting and chair the meeting.
I was always under the impression that Trish would let me know if I needed to be there.
But yeah, not in these ones. If you do a deep dive into the Grand County, it's 98 pages, the Grand County operating policy and procedure, it does say the commissioners are supposed to report if they're absent to the chair. Does that happen? I don't believe that happens, but not in these bylaws. Again, when I look at this board, it is a soft, fluffy, fun board. I don't think that it generally is the board that it's not as exciting as P&Z or a different board that has, that, but I think that's one thing. And I want to make it clear, Andrea and I, we're Switzerland, we are excited for anybody that wants to show up, but there was the appointment of the chair and the vice chair.
Okay.
That's just one thing to know.
Okay, just a general comment. If you guys are slowly removing us off all the boards, maybe that's not the intent. Maybe it is. I don't know. It just feels like that's slowly happening. I guess I feel a little like, as far as taxpayers are concerned, in my check, to be honest, I mean, at a certain point, it's like, well, if I just keep getting removed from boards and interview committees and et cetera and so on, which I am being, I feel a little bad taking the same paycheck that you are, to be honest, to be totally honest. I feel like I'm a very hard worker. I feel like I'm an asset to boards. I feel like I do my job with grace, moving back and forth between this board or between the commission and boards. And so I guess it is what it is, but I will tell you, I want to feel like I'm earning my paycheck.
Oh,
You know,
to make the motion.
I'll go to Mike.
I mean, he's not removing you. And if you haven't, somebody hasn't shown up for 5 meetings, they haven't been going. They're not part of the board a year and a quarter, later. So you're not being removed. I don't know how come you would feel that way, but there have to be, if you miss meetings and then you're not notifying Mary to go, then like he said, someone else is running that meeting. So, and I don't know, I know I've missed one board meeting, and I reached out to other commissioners to see if they could fill my spot. Or I've gone on Zoom if I have to. I know I missed one that no one could fill, but I let them know I wasn't gonna make it as well. So I don't know, I mean, these bylaws could be changed to make them more clear about missing meetings, but I don't even necessarily know if this is our. And Trish is listed as the liaison as far as our meetings go. I don't necessarily know if this is our discussion or if Bill could just go because it's a, you know, it's a board that has like 18 people on it. That's all. I don't know. I'm just a little confused about the whole situation. I can understand the fact that somebody's missed 5 meetings and should maybe be replaced.
Commissioner McCurdy and then Jock.
Oh, just clarify, you're still.
I understand.
Okay.
Jock.
But I'm around if you need a fill in.
I guess I don't want to comment on this particular board. I honestly don't know much about it, haven't looked into it too much, but I think in boards in general, I think the time to make changes unless there's been some sort of strong untoward behavior or whatever is the first of the year. I think that's time to revisit all of the work assignments.
Mary,
I'd like to call for a vote.
likewise, all in favor of the motion by Commissioner McCurdy, I believe seconded by Commissioner Martinez, was that correct?
Correct.
Yes, all in favor. Those opposed? One abstaining, Mary?
Correct.
So
What was 9? 4 to 2 to 1.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, Commissioner Hadler and Commissioner Hadeen with Commissioner McGann abstaining. And we move on to what is a discussion of agenda deadlines, associated attachments, and emergency additions to the commission agenda. And this is driven by multiple people, I think. I believe that Dana's had some input into this as she receives the bulk of our requests, whether they are on time or late. I know that both Mark and Quinn also help out with that. I think that we would like to get to where we have a solid deadline for these agendas. So that staff, once they do post this, that unless there's an emergency comes up, we're not attempting to add things later. I do know that state statute requires having all the documents on 24 hours prior to our actual meeting. And I do know that we've had a few in the past here recently where we were waiting on documents to get in here. I don't in any way think that any of that was intentional or due to someone trying to be less than transparent. If we wanted to go back to the first 2 years on my commission, I could show multiple times when it was done under a different chair, and I'm not pointing out that it has anything to do with the chair. I'm just saying that trying to blow this out of proportion, that it's a lack of transparency, doesn't help with trying to get this under control for staff. And that is ultimately what the goal is, to make this easier for all of our admin team to move forward. So Mary, I'll let you start us off, or where you want to.
I guess I had questions more than anything. What's being proposed? What's the change?
There's no change.
There's no change. It's just trying to clarify to all commissioners that there's a hard deadline.
My understanding is the hard deadline is for the agenda, not always what will be added to the packet. Right?
It's actually for everything, Mary. We want.
Okay, that's what I wanted clarification.
If they do not get put in, then that needs to be worked out with Dana and the chair and the vice chair. If there's a reason that those documents have not been loaded. The most recent one that I know of was we were waiting for documents when the county attorney was out of town at a conference. And so no intention to put him under the bus. It's just one of them where the documents weren't here and coming. And so we're trying to, anybody that puts something on this agenda, we would like those documents available as soon as possible. And if you can't make it by the agenda deadline, then please reach out to myself, Melody, or admin.
One of the three.
And I've like to point out, I have been at fault for not having all the documents on an agenda item. On this, I think that the rule should apply across the board. I apologize for not getting all my documents on there. But having the documents uploaded for all commissioners, for all staff, for everybody It makes it easier on everybody for me to review documents, because I get people requesting that I review contracts and sometimes get them on late. I will do better on my end on getting things for you guys, and so I do take responsibility. I don't, nobody needs to apologize for what we're doing. I can do better, and I will do better.
Thank you, and I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus in any way. It did happen.
It did, no, it didn't.
And Trish.
Bill, just to solidify, so the agenda deadline is Tuesday at midnight? Tuesday at midnight?
Yes,
Okay,
for agenda review, Wednesday.
gotcha. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, and you know, I was probably one that brought this to light. I sent an email. I had quite a few constituents reach out to me specifically about a few items recently where, you know, the agenda summary is blank, right, when it gets posted. And so people are just like, what is this? You know, this is obviously something, specifically when it's expenditures of large amounts of money. And I'm perfectly aware of state statute, and I understand we don't have to have that in there, but I think we just want to be better than that, right? I think if we have that deadline and to the best of our ability, you know, most people open that, I think it's Thursday evening, right? And so they want to see those items and they want to see them full, not these blank agenda summaries, right? Especially those constituents that we have that are very packet, they want to see that packet. So to me, I know that everybody's doing the best that they can. I just think try hard.
I will state that we've never had an agenda that was completely booked.
I understand.
We had a item that we were waiting on documents.
Sure.
We are doing better. I feel like we're doing much better than the previous commission and leadership. I would like to remind everybody that we opened up the agenda review to both sides of this body here by allowing Mary to participate in our agenda review. And as far as better, I would say that we're working towards that. So to say that we aren't is I take offense on that, and I'll go to Mike and then Melody and then Mary. Please, Mike.
We're doing better than I remember, but there's still room for improvement. Let's wrap that up the best we can. We're doing good. Keep it up. Rah, rah.
Thank you, Mike. Melody and then Mary.
So. I don't remember what I was gonna say. So Tuesday at midnight, and then if it's after that, Wednesday, I think it's not just comm admin, you should chair the vice chair and comm admin, because everyone's gonna be adding it. And, you know, if you can give them a precise, because sometimes when agenda review and it's just been like, okay, I mean, for example, today it was the thing with Chrissy, and we're just like, what do we call it? So having it more, you know, a good name for it and some information for Dana, so she's not just making it all up. So any help we can give Dana. And then and if you have something during a meeting, like today, I had a future discussion. We need to remember to message Dana. She doesn't always go back and have that. So that's one thing too, is if we are in a meeting and we say it, that doesn't necessarily mean she's like, I'm on it. I mean, she tries, but we need to remember to send an email today or tonight and say, hey, we put that on the next agenda, why it's fresh on our mind, and that way she doesn't miss it either.
Okay, I'd really like to recognize Dana first, just so that if she has anything she'd like to add, and then I do want to be fairly brief with any other further comments, because we're over the 6 o'clock and I should have had the 6 o'clock session to be heard before I started this.
Quickly, to help alleviate the issues that came up last meeting with the agenda summaries or the attachments not on there. The agenda summary, in my opinion, is the responsibility of the person who puts it on the agenda. They should provide all that. If they don't, it will be blank. The next thing was that I've put down now in that agenda summary somewhere where it'll let me, that if there are documents that we're waiting on, that they will be forthcoming and added to the packet as they are made available, so that anyone in the public who is reading that knows to come back and look for the attachments at a later date. And hopefully that will make them not so upset about it, that they're not there. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes, you know, we're just throwing something on there because we know you have to talk about it and all the things. But I think you know, putting that on there seems to, I think it might help.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Agreed. Thank you very much, Dana, Mary, and.
Come back to discussion, can't we?
You can just do citizen.
Come back.
Sure, can we come back to it, Mary? Is that okay? All right, I would like to recognize that it's 6:11. I'm a little bit late for the citizens to be heard. I see no one other than Andrew in the chamber here. Please feel free to come up. If not, do we have anybody online? All right, so citizens to be heard at 6:11 had no citizens present to speak, and so I will come back to our discussion and lead to Mary, and then I think Brian. And if I had those backwards, I apologize.
I guess I wanted to just clarify something from the past. In the past, it was that anyone could come to the agenda review that wanted to. It was just not an assignment except for the chair and the vice chair. I'd say you had a topic you wanted to talk about, or you were just interested, because there was more than once that when Jacques was chair and other people would, Evan was chair and other people would chair, I would email all the commissioners and say, I'm planning on attending the agenda review. Just so that we didn't accidentally get 4. But so it's always been expected, since I was on the board, that the chair and vice chair are at the agenda review, unless one of you can't, and then the other one takes over and things happen. But that the main thing was to never have a quorum. But that anyone that wanted to attend an agenda review, there was never any problem. Because I know I attended quite a few with Jacques, and I attended quite a few under Evan, Dave, and J-Man, and Lynn Jackson. So I guess I just wanted to clarify that it was never, no one was ever kept from coming to the end of agenda review. It was just like, these were the 2 people that were supposed to be there.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the county attorney and then back to you, Brian.
Yeah, and I'll note, I was never invited to an agenda review. I think maybe for the first 2 years of my time on.
You could have come anytime.
Okay, I would disagree with that. The first time I was ever invited to an agenda review ever was when we had a different chair. And to be honest, when I attend the agenda reviews, I have a lot of input on a lot of matters because I'm involved in a lot of matters.
Yeah.
So I don't remember it the same, that it was an open invitation. I don't know if the other commissioners went at all. But
Well, maybe it wasn't clarified, but that is how it had been since Lynn Jackson.
Brian, please.
No, I just wanted to, just recognize Dana for all the work that she's been doing. She's been fantastic since she's been in this office, as well as, all the admin staff. They've been just great to work with, and, whatever it takes to make their jobs easier, that's right where I want to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike, please.
3 years, I've never been invited to agenda review, so it's everyone. And I'll get there someday.
One additional note, going back kind of the item. For the agenda review, perhaps if there's items that are void that have nothing on there, perhaps there's a date and time that you guys purge the list. Like if there's an item that's not on there. And then the other thing with Commissioner Hadler and Commissioner Winfield and I meeting, we could also change what you guys want to see on the agenda review. Like when you guys want documents, when you guys want items, when they have to have, we can tighten that whole policy and procedure up. So if these things are coming up that you guys want to talk about and put more teeth into it or more clarity into it, I think this is an item I think is a very fair one, that, hey, if you don't have all your documents uploaded by Friday, then it's going to get kicked off. We do have sometimes that we have documents that are uploaded on a date and then are later changed or modified or refreshed. So that's, I don't know. I think that's one thing that came to my mind when we're sitting here, is purging items out if they don't have those items. So.
Any further discussion? All right. I will then move this to a closed session.
I'll make.
Need a motion.
Oh, I need a motion again. Sorry, thank you.
Sure, makes a motion. I move to go into closed session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation
And character.
and character, I'm sorry.
And character and competence.
Character.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hadler, second by Commissioner McCurdy. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Andrew, for your time today.
When?
Don't say how much.